Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. When my archer talent is maxed out, I will kill all races. Chapter 21. A Night of Silence. After a night's rest, everyone in the Wolong team has been resurrected with full health. Xuanyan stretched and looked at the roof of another building outside the window. There, a figure stood upright with a silver stick hanging from his waist and holding a black alloy bow. What a pervert. An E-level talent can recover faster than my C-level talent. Looking back, Xuanyan sighed. Ren Jianming on the side couldn't help but nodded. Old Shui, have you heard a word? What? Xuanyan was confused. Since ancient times, archers have often hung on walls. Ren Jianming glanced at the figure on the roof not far away, and then said to Xuanyan with a smile. Xuanyan, so don't think about talent. Patting Xuanyan's shoulder, Ren Jianming smiled mysteriously. Guess what level his spear martial arts has reached? In addition, have you noticed? He stood up and leaned against the window. Doubts flashed in his eyes. From yesterday to today, Chen Qi definitely put in more mental energy than us, but his recovery speed is faster than us. A lot. Ah, Ren Jianming shook his head slightly. C-level talents like us have to work hard. Don't let Chen Qi, an E-level talent, throw us away. If my guess is correct, the War Spirit Master Chen Qi is about to enter the second level, or has even entered the second level. Mist grass. Xuanyan couldn't help but complain in a low voice. It has only been 1 month since the new recruits were trained for 3 months, and within 1 month there has already been a gap in everyone's cultivation. The most obvious one is the only A-level talent holder in the team. Su Xingyuan's strength has reached the 3rd level of warrior, and the battle spirit method is only 1 step away from the 2nd level of spirit condensation. The well-deserved first person in the entire team. Ranked 2nd is Wang Er, the only B-level healing talent in the team. He is a 2nd level warrior and has a 1st level combat spirit spell. He is not too far away from condensation spirit. The rest of the people are all at the 1st level of warrior level. Xuanyan and Ren Jianming seemed to have deliberately ignored Chen Qi in the team. In just 1 day, Chen Qi's position in their hearts had quietly changed. Although he doesn't want to admit it, the fact is that although Chen Qi's talent is only E-level, his strength has surpassed all of them. Xuanyan and Ren Jianming even speculated whether Chen Qi's strength could rival Captain Su Xingyuan. No one knows how far Chen Qi's strength has reached. There are still 3 hours until the end. Guess where our points will be ranked this time? The time is almost over, but Su Xingyuan and the others are not too anxious. His voice reached Chen Qi's ears through the tactical watch on his hand. At least it's in the top 3. With only 3 hours left, Chen Qi didn't deliberately look for traces of strange beasts. Anyway, he would get points if he encountered them. If he didn't, he would forget it. Wang Er, Xuanyan and others looked at each other and chuckled. After entering Tangsong County, Chen Qi seemed to be invisible. He would only appear when the battle was over. No one knows how many points each team has. Su Xingyuan and the others simply didn't think much and walked slowly towards the exit. Chen Qi, who was at the commanding heights, activated his Eagle Eye Insight talent skill, allowing him to easily locate any changes in his sight. Before a 1st-level warrior beast could react, a silver arrow shot through the air. The arrow passed through his head and nailed it to the wall of the abandoned building. Such a powerful beast no longer requires the team to take action. Chen Qi alone can kill it before it can react. At this moment, Chen Qi's strength is about to break through the 4th level of warrior realm. With such strength, he could kill an alien beast at the 1st level of a warrior by relying on his own strength, even without using a long bow. And don't forget, there is a silver stick hanging on his waist. As long as he needs it, he can turn it into a spear in the next second. From an archer with only long-range attack capabilities, he instantly transformed into an archer with melee capabilities. The points of all teams are displayed on the screen in the office. Wu Lui was no longer alone at this moment. Shang Han and the squad leaders of the other teams were all present. It was very quiet in the office. The only sound that could be heard was the rotation of the machine fan and the sound of throat rolling. First place, 32 Wolong team, current points are 56. Second place, 15 Beast Hunting team, currently with 34 points. Third place, 2 Ice and Fire team, current points are 32. Fourth place, 8 nameless team, current points are 29. 56. Looking at the numbers displayed on the screen, everyone present could not help but take a breath. Is Team Wolong on drugs? Or what? Didn't we only have 24 points yesterday? How long has it been since we last met, and your points have suddenly doubled? Is it possible that they brought the low-level alien beasts together? Someone raised doubts. It would take at least 10 minutes to kill a first-level warrior beast with the strength of new recruits like them, plus finding the beast, recovering strength, etc. If you calculate it this way, the time is not enough at all. Quote, someone did some calculations in their mind and found that neither the strength of the team, nor the speed of killing the alien beasts, nor the time it took to find the alien beasts, was enough to kill so many alien beasts in a short period of time. Even with 1 point per animal, Chen-Chi and the others would have to kill more than 50. But since it is a competition assessment for new recruits, how can it be possible that there are only first-level warrior beasts? Unless they can challenge several alien beasts at the same time, it should be impossible based on the strength of their team. Everyone speculated about the constant changes in the Wolong team. The second-ranked beast hunting team is also very strong, with 34 points, 4 points ahead of the third place. Feng Quan's face changed slightly. Listening to everyone's discussion, he felt his chest was tight. Yesterday, he was still full of confidence. He started teasing Wu Lui because it was still early and it was not certain who would be ranked first. He didn't expect the slap in the face to come so quickly. Tell me honestly, is there a genius hidden in your team? Feng Quan was doubtful. He could accept that his team lost the game, but he didn't understand why the Wolong team's points increased so quickly. Wu Lui came to his senses. He looked at Feng Quan, whose eyes were full of resentment, and spread his hands helplessly. If I say it, I don't know, would you believe it? This sentence is true. But no one including Feng Quan and other squad leaders present believed it. The squad leader doesn't know the strength of his team. If you say this, someone will believe it. Wu Lui was also helpless. Wu Sao, I really don't know. Gone. Zhang En, the leader of the hunting team, looked a little pale at the moment. This is caused by excessive consumption of strength and talent. There are only 2 hours left in the first month's recruit competition assessment to end. Zhang En and the others now have 34 points, ranked second. And as everyone gasped slightly, a warrior's third-level alien beast fell down. 37 points. Ice and Fire Team, Sun Fa, Zhou Ning and others were walking towards the exit. Captain Sun, what score do you think Su Xingyuan and the others have now? The county town, which has been abandoned for several years, is full of green plants, and the originally tall buildings have become covered with vines as time goes by. The scene they had seen suddenly appeared in Sun Fa's mind. The silver arrows are like fingers that control the entire battlefield. A slight movement can control the rhythm of the entire battlefield. Down to every person, every action, and even every opportunity. Sun Fa and Zhou Ning have never figured out how powerful their talents are to achieve such a terrifying level. When Su Xingyuan and his group were fighting the alien beasts, they stood on the edge of the battlefield, just like the audience of this dangerous performance. And that silver arrow is the protagonist of this dangerous show. When it appears, everyone's attention will be attracted to it. Everyone present was shocked. The person leading all of this is extremely mysterious. I don't know, it shouldn't be any less than us. Sun Fa shook his head and retracted his thoughts. Zhou Ning shrugged and stopped talking. As the time gets closer, many teams are racing against time to kill the alien beasts. The reason is to add 1 more point to the original points. As the protagonists, the Wolong team and others seemed to have no such anxiety. Chen-Chi has returned to the team. There are 8 people in the team. Su Xingyuan holds a gun in his right hand, the tip of the gun is tilted forward, and the gun barrel is slung on his left shoulder. His military uniform makes him look more energetic and handsome. Chen Qixian glanced at Su Xingyuan, who looked like a living king, and could only sigh, I was born with a strong body. Captain Su Xingyuan deserves the C position, with Wang Er and others behind him. With B-level healing talent, he plays a very important role in the team. Chen-Chi was holding a black alloy longbow and walking at the end of the team, looking extremely inconspicuous. But when everyone in the team spoke, they would unconsciously look back at Chen-Chi, who was at the end of the team. Exit. Shang Han and all the squad leaders have been waiting here for a long time. At this moment, there is still half an hour before the end of the recruit competition assessment. Shang Han raised his hand and glanced at the tactical watch on his wrist before giving the order to end the assessment. As the order to end the assessment was issued, all teams participating in the assessment received the order to end the assessment. They all gathered towards the exit. 20 minutes later, all 32 teams were assembled. Shang Han's figure was upright, and his tiger eyes swept over the teams in front of him. After a long while, he raised his hand, inform each team's points. After the words fell, everyone present suddenly became nervous, not only the members of each team, but also the squad leaders such as Wu Lui. Recruits have 3 competitive assessments in 3 months, and each time will be related to their points. These points do not refer to alien points, but general points in the army. They called it meritorious service. At the beginning of this recruit competition assessment, Shang Han had already told them that all the squad leaders who led the recruits this time would be rewarded with meritorious deeds. And during the 3-month recruitment period, whichever team has the best performance will get more merit points. Merit points can be exchanged for various training resources, martial arts, and weapons in the army. They are all competing for this month's recruit competition assessment. 32nd place, Class 6, Good Combat Team, 8 points. When the soldier who was responsible for reporting the scores of each team finished his words, the squad leader of Class 6 already looked very ugly. 8 points in 2 days. The other monitors all cast pitiful looks at him. Except for one B-level talent with Earth Element, the people under the squad leader of Class 6 are all C-level and D-level. Although the Earth Element is a fighting talent, it is not strong enough. Everyone in the Good Warfare team also knew that their results were not very good, but when they heard that they were in last place, the 8 people were stunned, their faces turned red, and they just felt ashamed. The voice of announcing the scores of each team has not yet fallen. This time the notification was from back to front. 10th place, Class 1, Sword Team, 15 points. Hearing the name of their team, the 8 members of the Sword Team smiled, and they couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. At least it's not ranked low. They also knew that there were 7 A-level talents among the recruits this time. A-level talent, this is no longer on the same track as them. Not bad. The squad leader also had a smile on his face, nodded to a few people, and secretly calculated how much merit he could obtain. After entering the top 10, the ranking has basically been decided. The team rankings are displayed on the screen hanging in the office, and each squad leader already knows the ranking of his or her team. But I still couldn't help but want to hear the rankings from the announcer. 4th place, 8 Nameless Team, 29 points. Hearing the code name of his team, the leader of the unknown team, Zhang Cheng, looked confused in his eyes. Didn't he even reach the top 3 positions with his A-level amplification talent? So who are the top 3? Soon, his doubts were answered. 3rd place, 2 Ice and Fire Team, 32 points. Sun Fa and Zhou Ning looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They had almost tried their best, but in the end they could only get a 3rd place. How far are Su Xingyuan and the others? Now, only the Crouching Dragon team and the Beast Hunting team's points have not been reported. Who will be number 1? The eyes of the 30 teams all fell on the 2 teams. Su Xingyuan had a faint smile on his face, looked sideways at Zhang An, nodded slightly, his expression full of confidence. Zhang An's eyelids twitched at this moment, he knew Su Xingyuan. As someone who awakened the A-level talent Thunder, Su Xingyuan's reputation among the recruits had already spread. A person who is in the 2nd level of Warrior Realm and has A-level talent will shine no matter where he goes. But he heard that Su Xingyuan's team members were not very strong. On the contrary, he is much weaker than the people in his own team. My team has 1 A-level, 5 B-level, and 2 C-level. Such a lineup is considered luxurious in a recruit team. As for the configuration of Su Xingyuan's team, although the captain Su Xingyuan has an A-level talent in Thunder, it is almost impossible to win 1st place. Moreover, as far as he knew, Su Xingyuan and his team also had a new recruit with E-level archer talent. Level E. Whether one has broken through to the 1st level of a warrior is a question. With such a team's strength, how could it be possible for him to win? At this moment, he was full of confidence. 2nd place, 15th Beast Hunting Team, with 34 points. Jong-un was stunned, and even the other team members behind him were also stunned. Is there any mistake? Jong-un and the others have such a strong team, but they didn't even get the first place. The soldier responsible for reporting the points ignored Jong-un and others, but slowly announced the name of the first place Wolong team. First place, 32 Wolong team, points. He raised his eyes and looked at everyone in front of him, and the numbers that came out of his mouth made all the people in the team present stunned. Wolong team, points 56. How many? 56. When everyone who participated in the recruit competition assessment heard the points of Wolong team, their eyes fell on Su Xingyuan and others. 56 points. Such a number fell on everyone's ears, making them look at the Wolong team in horror. Their widened eyes revealed the shock in their hearts. The second place hunting team only had 34 points. The Crouching Dragon team has a full 22 points more than the Beast Hunting team. Impossible. Jong-un immediately expressed shock. Su Xingyuan raised his eyes and looked at Jong-un, raised his eyebrows slightly, and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. So you suspect that we cheated? After the words fell, the eyes of everyone present suddenly changed. As the squad leader of Jong-un and the others, Feng Quan's expression changed. Jong-un's behavior was already doubting the fairness of this recruit competition assessment. Are you kidding me? Shang Han is still present, and there are so many recruit squad leaders present, so cheating is absolutely impossible. Jong-un suddenly woke up at this moment. Feeling the eyes on him, he took a deep breath. Squad leader, company commander Shang, I'm not questioning the fairness of the competition, I'm just questioning their results. Now that he had opened his mouth, Jong-un simply had no scruples and continued, I admit that Su Xingyuan's talent is very strong. But even if he is strong, he can't be strong enough to compete with a team of people. So, I have a reasonable suspicion that Su Xingyuan and the others have cooperated with other teams to achieve their current results. After Jong-un finished speaking, he turned to look directly at Su Xingyuan and others, his eyes full of dissatisfaction. Feng Quan's originally ugly face flashed with light after hearing Jong-un's words. Even the other people looked at Su Xingyuan and others thoughtfully. The expressions of everyone in the Wolong team were stagnant, and they were stunned for a moment. Then they came back to their senses and looked at Jong-un and others with strange eyes. Chen Qi stood at the end of the team, his lips slightly raised, revealing a faint smile. Shang Han and the people responsible for the Wolong team's point statistics and scoring couldn't help but smile at this moment. Others don't know, but they know it very well. Su Xingyuan, Chen Qi and the others have joined forces with other teams. Such suspicion does not sound problematic. After all, just looking at the strength of Chen Qi's team, they are indeed not as good as Jong-un's team. But this is superficial strength. It is not only the apparent combat strength that affects the outcome of the battle, but also other factors. For example, Chen Qi stood at the back of the Wolong team. He is the one who affects the outcome of this game. Shang Han had no doubts because the people responsible for this competition assessment were all his subordinates. These people have been with him for a long time, and he knows each person's character very well. He was confident enough that this group of people would never take sides. If such a combination really happened, he would definitely know about it. He did not speak, but glanced lightly at Chen Qi, who was standing in the crowd, with a smile in his eyes. This kid hides very deep. Wu Lui was also stunned. The sudden increase in Wolong team's points made him very confused. Jong-un's guess sounds like there is nothing wrong with it. But when he followed Shang Han's line of sight, he seemed to understand something. He did not argue, but waited for Su Xingyuan and others' explanation. Sun Fa, Zhou Ning, Zhang Ruya, Zhao Juxin and others who had witnessed the battle of Wolong team all remained silent, but looked at Jong-un with strange eyes. Jong-un, your team is indeed very strong. But what you don't know is what kind of freak is hidden in Su Xingyuan's team. If they hadn't seen Chen Qi's actions with their own eyes, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to help but have such suspicions at this time. Facing Jong-un's doubts, Su Xingyuan shook his head slightly and said with a half smile, Jong-un, you mean that if your team can't do it, other teams can't do it, too? Yes, at least your team doesn't seem to have exceeded our expectations. Ha ha. Su Xingyuan smiled, clapped his hands, and said calmly, if you have doubts, why don't you ask the Ice and Fire team and Zhao Juxin? What do you mean? Zhang An's pupils narrowed and he glanced at Sun Fa and others. Now, Sun Fa smiled bitterly. Zhang An, I can testify that Captain Su and the others did not cooperate with other teams. 56 points are indeed not too difficult for their team. Zhang Ruya and Zhao Juxin also took a step together, and Zhang Ruya said, Captain Zhang An, your behavior is really unqualified. It's not surprising that Su Xingyuan and Chen Qi's team have such results. Zhao Juxin couldn't help but sigh, looked up at Zhang An, who was full of doubts, and sighed, Zhang An, I can also testify. They did not cheat, nor did they join forces with other teams. Such results were definitely achieved by themselves. Why should I believe you? What's the evidence? Even if several people testified, Zhang An still expressed doubts. Zhang Ruya no longer had the smile of the past at this moment, and said with a stern face, Zhang An, your unreasonable suspicion will only make people think that you cannot afford to lose. Also, didn't you say there was some evidence? Chen Qi and the others rescued our entire team, does this count as evidence? Who knows if you two are together? Zhang An is still talking hard, but he still doesn't believe it. Zhang Ruya wanted to say something more. Su Xingyuan walked out slowly, patted Zhang Ruya's shoulder lightly, smiled at her, and then turned to look at Zhang An. So what do you think before you believe it? I want to compete with you again. Zhang An said word for word. Okay, I don't have any objections. I'll accompany you anytime. Su Xingyuan laughed. The Zhang An in front of him really didn't want to die until he reached the Yellow River. Okay. Shang Han couldn't stand it anymore and interrupted Zhang An's words. He took a deep look at Zhang An and waved to call out the two people responsible for the performance and evaluation of the Wolong team. Talk to him. Shang Han didn't intend to mess around with Zhang An's eye any longer. The two men in military uniforms looked serious. Wolong team's points are real and valid. Although the overall strength seems not as good as yours, these points are indeed obtained by themselves. It's impossible. Until now, Zhang An still wanted to argue. Shang Han was already a little impatient, his calm eyes fell on Zhang An, and his voice sounded. You can have doubts, but you shouldn't have unreasonable doubts. Since you think Su Xingyuan and his team are cheating, I'll give you a chance. I will appoint 3 people in their team. If you can win all 3 games, I can cancel their results. As soon as these words came out, everyone present was stunned. Wu Lui was stunned for a moment, opened his mouth, but finally said nothing. They couldn't stop Shang Han's decision. Zhang Ruya, Sun Fa and others who knew the truth all looked thoughtful when they heard Shang Han's words. They seemed to have guessed something. Zhang An looked at Su Xingyuan and others, okay. I don't have any objection either. Su Xingyuan and the others naturally had no objection. Both parties had no objections. Shang Han smiled and raised his hand to point out the 3 of them. Su Xingyuan, Wang Er, Chen Qi. When the first 2 people stepped forward, Zhang An's expression had not changed much. He had already expected that there would definitely be these 2 people. These 2 are the strongest in the Wolong team. But when he saw Chen Qi, he couldn't help but said, Company Commander, I ask for a substitution. Why? Shang Han smiled. He is too weak. An E-level archer with talent is no match for me. I don't want to bully others. Su Xingyuan, Wang Er, Sun Fa, Zhou Ning, Zhang Ruya, Zhao Juxin. You picked the wrong person, silly boy. Although Su Xingyuan and the others are strong, Chen Qi is the strongest one, Sao. Chen Qi raised his eyes and glanced at Zhang An, smiled, and said nothing. Su Xingyuan and others almost laughed out loud. As an A-level healing talent, Zhang An is indeed better than them. Chen Qiming does seem to have an E-level archer talent. The difference between the 2 is obvious to everyone. It is completely impossible for Chen Qi to defeat Zhang An unless he is not an E-level archer. Shang Han glanced at Zhang An, then looked at Chen Qi with a smile. Chen Qi, what do you think? Chen Qi shrugged. I don't care. Zhang An raised his eyebrows with a serious expression. Chen Qi, I have an A-level talent. Although it is only a healing talent, I am still better than you. You are no match for me. Even if your longbow is very strong, once you get close to me, you are still no match for me. It's okay, I also know some marksmanship. Chen Chu said with a smile and took off the silver stick hanging from his waist. With a slight shake, the silver stick suddenly changed, and a silver spear appeared. After Chen Qidu said this, Zhang An said no more and nodded towards Shang Han. Captain Shang, you can start. Shang Han nodded and waved his hand, and everyone dispersed, leaving enough room for Zhang An and others to perform. Everyone retreated, leaving behind Su Xingyuan, Wang Er, Chen Qi and Zhang An. Chen Qi, are your marksmanship good? Su Xingyuan and Wang Er looked at Chen Qi and asked worriedly. Instead of choosing the longbow, which he is best at, he chose the spear. Chen Qi is naturally confident. The martial arts he chose in the logistics department were not advanced martial arts, just first-class marksmanship martial arts. Wind chasing gun. Martial arts are divided into first level, second level. The proficiency of martial arts is divided into 11 levels. The first 5 realms are initial practice, proficiency, small success, and agility. Going up is not something that Chen Qi can achieve now. After all, he has just entered the realm of understanding. He may not be as proficient in martial arts as Zhang An, but he has an innate skill that Zhang An does not have. Eagle Eye Insight. This talent skill not only allows him to observe enemies farther away, but also accurately captures every opportunity. This is why he can control the battlefield from a few hundred meters away. It should be pretty good. Chen Qi replied with a smile. Su Xingyuan and Wang Er nodded slightly, looked at each other and said, you go up last, Wang Er, and I will try him first. No, I've practiced my marksmanship so far, and I haven't made a move yet. Today I can take this opportunity to try out my marksmanship. Chen Qi shook his head, rejected the two of them, and stepped out slowly. Without the familiar long bow, Chen Qi held a silver gun in his hand, and there was a faint fighting spirit in his calm eyes. Chen Qi walked out first, and Zhang An stopped talking nonsense. He had a long alloy knife in his hand with a sharp blade. Flashing cold light. Be careful, I won't strike lightly. Don't worry, no more nonsense. The two figures moved at the same time. Zhang An stamped his feet fiercely, slashed out the long sword in his hand, and a silver light flashed past, and the sharp sword energy was directed towards Chen Qi. The sword energy cut through the air and made a hissing sound. Chen Qi's eyes were calm, his fingers clenched instantly, and the spear in his hand swept out instantly. Every inch is longer and every inch is stronger. The tip of the spear cut through the air, and instantly collided with the long knife. There was a clang and sparks flew everywhere. Zhang An's pupils shrank sharply, flashing a hint of shock. What a powerful force! In the collision just now, the huge force coming from the long knife made his palms numb. Chen Qi smiled lightly, and he flashed nimbly. The silver spear in his hand was like a snake, stabbing Zhang An at an incredible angle. Zhang An also reacted very quickly. He blocked Chen Qi's silver spear with a long sword. This time, he did not retreat. He took half a step back with his right foot and stopped his body. A fierce aura erupted in his eyes, and the blade swiped across the body of the gun. Bringing up a spark, he wanted to bully him. Although the long knife was sharp, the spear in Chen Qi's hand was much longer than the long knife. If he did not close the distance between the two, he would not be able to attack Chen Qi at all. Zhang An's movements fell into Chen Qi's eyes. He raised the corners of his mouth slightly, twisted his waist violently, and instantly exerted force on his hand holding the gun. The gun body instantly bent into an arc, and Zhang An felt anxious. At this moment, he was only 3 steps away from Chen Qi. Do you want to retreat? Or do you want to bully yourself? Before he could think about it, the gun's body straightened instantly. Buzz! A dull sound broke through the air, making Zhang An's scalp numb. The long knife blocked his side instantly. Bang! As if being hit by a huge force, Zhang An flew 3 meters away. Just now, huge waves of power came from the silver gun, causing half of his body to feel numb. Impossible! He was horrified. He never expected that Chen Qi's marksmanship had reached the realm of understanding. He is in the same realm as his sword skills. Chen Qi did not take action again, but waited for Zhang An to react. Zhang An refused to accept it, and the two of them attacked and defended, and passed several moves in an instant. The more Zhang An fought, the more frightened he became. He discovered that Chen Qi's marksmanship was not only unique, but each shot seemed to have been refined thousands of times, and both the strength and angle were superb. Chen Qi also became more courageous as he fought, and his marksmanship finally had the opportunity to be tested in actual combat. Every shot contained powerful power and skillful marksmanship. The tip of the spear seemed to have spirituality. Whether it was stabbing, picking, sweeping or chopping, it all seemed so natural and smooth. For a moment, the entire training ground was filled with the sounds of swords and guns clashing, and the sound of two people's fast-moving footsteps. The people around were attracted by this wonderful competition and watched intently. A few minutes later, Zhang An suddenly felt the long knife in his hand shake, and then a huge force came from him. He took a few steps back to stabilize his body. Looking up, he saw Chen Qi's silver gun pointing steadily at his throat. Accepted. A calm voice sounded, and Chen Qi looked at Zhang An, who looked shocked. Zhang An's lips moved, and just after he said one word, he could no longer say the following words. Feeling the coldness in his throat, Zhang An looked lonely. I lost. These 3 words seemed to use up all my strength. The A-level talent Zhang An lost to the E-level talent Chen Qi. When seeing this scene, everyone present was stunned. Gulu. Sao, is this an E-level talent? Is there any mistake? Zhang An has let things slip. Chen Qi is just an E-level talent. An E-level archer with a talent gave up the longbow and chose to use a spear. He defeated Zhang An with an A-level talent head-on. Isn't this world too crazy? Who can tell me, Chen Qi really has an E-level archer talent? Zhang An was defeated very quickly, and it only took a minute or two from start to finish. This result shocked everyone. Su Xingyuan and Wang Er were also speechless by this result. No one expected this result. Do you want to continue? Shang Han's voice sounded. Zhang An smiled bitterly and shook his head with a lonely look. He couldn't even defeat Chen Qi, and he was no match for the A-level talented Su Xingyuan. After his own defeat, Zhang An had begun to completely doubt himself. Are you really that weak? That's all right, let's go. Shang Han waved his hand and everyone dispersed. Chen Qi stays. Do you feel useless? Su Xingyuan caught up with Zhang An and said with a smile. Zhang An glanced at Su Xingyuan and said nothing. Oh, it's okay. Just keep working hard. Chen Qi's strength in our team is actually just that. I can beat him up anytime. Su Xingyuan will die if he doesn't show off. Wang Er was speechless listening to Su Xingyuan's boastful words. At the same time, he also sympathized with Zhang An. Poor kid. Su Xingyuan is indeed very strong, but if he were to fight against Chen Qi and was distanced by Chen Qi, maybe Su Xingyuan would be the one who gets beaten up. Jincheng First Hospital. How's it going? Li Yinian looked very ugly. He glanced at Li Ji on the hospital bed and asked in a deep voice. Feeling the sharp aura that Li Yinian exuded inadvertently, the doctor, whose strength was only Wu Sanjiang, suppressed his fear, shook his head and said, the injury is not serious and he will be discharged from the hospital in 3 days. Nu. Li Yinian nodded slightly and handed over an alien beast crystal core. Thank you for your hard work. It should. The doctor hesitated, but finally took the crystal core, with a respectful expression, and added after a pause, those 3 arrows did not hit Master Li's vitals, so the injury is not serious. Yeah, Li Yinian nodded. The doctor also knew that he could obtain an alien beast crystal core, which was already the biggest gain from this friendship. It is obviously unrealistic to want to make friends with Li Yinian, who has reached the 7th level of martial arts with the strength of the 3rd level martial artist. He nodded respectfully and turned to leave. You are very courageous if you dare to take action against my son, Li Yinian. Li Yinian squinted his eyes full of coldness. When Li Ji's accident happened, he was not in Jincheng and went to the imperial capital. He did not return to Jincheng until today. During his absence, Li Ji was attacked and killed. When Li Yinian learned the news, he was furious. He looked at the 2 girls surrounding Li Ji lying on the bed in the ward, and sighed helplessly in his heart. My son is really spoiled by me. Although his talent is good, he has a lot of bad habits. Li Yinian loved his son very much, and for more than 10 years, he responded to his every request. A month ago, he personally came forward to put pressure on the principal of No. 2 Wuhan High School and forced a student to drop out. And all this is just because of a girl. Li Yinian shook his head slightly and said softly to himself, you still have to correct your mistakes, otherwise you will only get into trouble in the future," he said, already having a plan in his mind. As the deputy leader of the largest hunting group in Jincheng, Li Yinian has made friends with many people, from Wugao to Wuyu Bureau, to aristocratic families, and the army. It can be said that Li Yinian can sit in his current position, not just relying on his strength. What's more important is his connections. And if you want to get rid of your son's bad habits, there is only one most suitable place. Army. Dad, I'm not going. Li Ji widened his eyes and looked at his father, Li Yinian, in disbelief. Very resistant. No, you have to go even if you don't want to go. There is no room for negotiation on this matter. Li Yinian had a stern face and a firm attitude. After this incident, Li Yinian was determined to change Li Ji's bad habits. Li Yinian's face darkened, and Li Ji felt a little frightened. He knew his father's temper very well. He would definitely do what he promised himself, but once Li Yinian decided something, it would be useless no matter how hard he resisted. Dad, the army is so dangerous, can you bear to let me go? Li Ji was still trying to resist. I know. Li Yinian nodded and smiled. I'm just sending you to the army for a period of time. You will come back after the recruit training. Then I will send you to Wuhan University. I hope you can correct your mistakes this time. Li Ji had no choice but to nod in agreement. I will send you there tomorrow. The Third Army is not far away. I have already said hello. I will not let you do dangerous things. All right, sit. In the office, there were 3 people, Shang Han, Chen Qi and Wu Lui. Chen Qi sat down and looked at Wu Lui doubtfully. Wu Lui shook his head. He didn't know what Shang Han's purpose was in keeping Chen Qi. Shang Han lit a cigarette and stared at Chen Qi in front of him, not knowing what he was thinking. After a while, he spoke slowly. Chen Qi, do you know why there is this recruit competition assessment? I don't know. Chen Qi shook his head. How could he know such a thing? I'm afraid that among the 3 of them, only Shang Han knows the specific reason. Recruit squad leaders like Wu Lui didn't know the specific reason. Shang Han smiled. This time there are only 2 purposes. The first thing is to look at your recruit's combat qualities, handling of dangers and other qualities. Chen Qi nodded. He had already guessed this. The second point. Putting out the cigarette in his hand, Shang Han stretched out 2 fingers. It is to select some people to join one of our plans. Chen Qi was stunned for a moment, then nodded in understanding. Do you want to know how your team performed in this recruit competition assessment? After Shang Han finished speaking, he pushed the information he had at hand to Chen Qi. You can take a look. Turning over the information in his hand, the overall evaluation of each battle was recorded on it. From the team as a whole to each individual in the team. Wolong Squad, overall evaluation, A++. Captain Su Xingyuan's command performance, A. Combat performance, A+. The rest of the team members performed A. Special performance personnel. Chen Qi, strength, first level warrior, extremely keen on battlefield control, overall performance A++, recommended to be included in the talent plan. While Chen Qi lowered his head to read the information, Shang Han continued to speak. After our evaluation, your overall performance ranks among the best among this batch of recruits, especially your ability to understand battlefield timing and your archer talent. Although your strength is not the best, your ability to control the battlefield is definitely top-notch. I can tell you now that you have been included in our talent plan. Having said this, Shang Han paused, then asked with a smile, are you interested in finding a teacher? Although your archer talent is not strong, your speed in practicing war spirit techniques and comprehending martial arts completely exceeded my expectations. Chen Qi raised his head. Company commander, my awakened talent is archer, and my main practice is longbow. Even if I am looking for a teacher, I would also like to find a teacher who is also gifted as an archer. Wu Lui twitched the corner of his mouth. Chen Qi didn't know Shang Han, but he knew it very well. Who is Shang Han? He is the company commander of the 26th Company of the 8th Division of the Beast Suppression Army under the 3rd Army. But behind him stood an even stronger man. Commander of the 8th Division, 6th level martial spirit. It is simply unimaginable to be a teacher at the 6th level of martial arts realm. The training system ranges from 1st level warriors, to 2nd level martial soldiers, to 6th level martial spirit realm. As for Li Ji's father, Li Yinian, he was only at the 5th level Wuzong realm. It is quite different from the martial spirit realm. This silly boy. Wu Lui shook his head secretly. He felt that Chen Qi had missed a big opportunity. For an E-level archer with talent to be able to take the martial spirit realm as his master, this is no longer a great opportunity but a huge opportunity. Shang Han looked slightly stunned, then smiled and shook his head. Chen Qi, you need to find a teacher with archer talent, I can help you. But the prerequisite for you to become a disciple is that you can prove your ability. Many people think that the awakened archer talent can only exist as a combat support role, but is this really the case? After a pause, he continued, any talent has its own level. If it is an ordinary archer's talent, it can only be used as a combat support. But when the talent reaches a certain level, as the strength increases, the awakened talent will become more and more powerful. And talent does not determine a person's ultimate strength. Since you want to find a teacher with archer talent, I can help you. That's the same thing, the premise is that you can prove yourself. In the next 2 months, work hard. When the recruit training is over, you guys will all enter that place. Shang Han's words have already explained a lot of things. First, he knows strong people, and they are particularly strong people. Second, this time the recruit training is over, Chen Qi and others who have been included in the talent plan will be transferred to other places. After listening to Shang Han's words, Chen Qi nodded. After thinking for a while, he asked, Company Commander, can I ask where we will be transferred after this time is over? Shang Han smiled mysteriously. If you were still studying in a martial arts high school, what would you do next? Chen Qi was shocked, looked at Shang Han in surprise, and said loudly, take the exam at Wuhan University. Shang Han nodded. So you know where you are going. My son has too many bad habits. The main reason he was sent here this time is to correct his problems in the army. Li Yinian smiled and chatted with Yang Guang, who was wearing military uniform. He looked at the bored Li Ji and felt a little headache. I didn't even know who was being attacked. My son is hopeless. Haha, Lao Li, you love your son very much. Are you really willing to send him to the army this time? Yang Guang, who was wearing military uniform, smoked a cigarette and joked with a smile. Li Yinian shook his head helplessly. This kid has been spoiled by me. Some time ago, he forced a student to drop out of school because of a girl. I didn't agree to it at first, but I couldn't help him crying, making trouble, and hanging himself. But who would have thought that he would be attacked and killed after I was gone for a while? Being attacked and killed, Yang Guang looked serious, glanced at Li Ji, and asked, could he be your enemy? Li Yinian shook his head. He was also very surprised as to who had taken action against Li Ji. He has enemies, but once those people take action, the result will never be the same. Moreover, he had enough confidence that those people would never have the courage to take action against Li Ji. After all, everyone has a family, and conflicts and contradictions are not a problem. Once you take action against your family, things will completely change. Probably not. The person who took action did not have the will to kill. Otherwise, based on that person's strength, Li Ji should not be easily injured. After hearing what Li Yinian said, Yang Guang stopped asking any more questions and changed the topic. He wants to recruit new soldiers. Currently, only the 8th Division of the 2nd Front Army under the 3rd Army Corps has new recruits. But they've been training there for a month. I don't know if your kid can keep up. Yang Guang's status is not low, so if he wants to recruit a new soldier, it won't be a big problem. Hearing what Yang Guang said, Li Yinian waved his hand. Although this boy of mine has many bad habits, his talent is not weak. He has an S-level wind element and is more than enough to enter Wuhan University. It's just that I'm worried that this kid will come into conflict with others when he enters Wuhan University. Having said this, he looked at Li Ji and said helplessly, you also know that there are only a few good martial arts universities in the country, and apart from the Demon City, they are located in the Imperial City. There are many powerful people in these places, but for someone like me, who is at the 7th level of the martial sect, I really can't get enough of them. Yang Guang laughed, pointed at Li Yinian, and nodded with a smile, that's the truth. But let me speak in advance. The company commander who led the new recruits this time, Shang Han, is a man who can't get rid of anything in his eyes. He is very strict in leading the troops. This kid of yours will have to suffer a lot if he goes in. It's okay. As long as he is not beaten to death or disabled, I will accept it. I don't need to change all his bad habits. As long as I can change some of his bad habits, I will be satisfied. The two chatted for a while before parting. You brat, be more honest in the army and change your bad habits. I have to say that although Li Yinyan was very indulgent towards Li Ji, he was a good father, at least in Li Ji's opinion. I know. Li Ji waved his hand, a little impatiently. What fun is there in the army? What can happen to a group of big men? Coupled with his S-level talent, it was a question of whether any of the new recruits could be his opponent. Recruit Company. Wu Sao, you're awesome, Captain Su. 56 points, amazing. Captain Su, I didn't expect that your team actually got 56 points. A group of team captains greeted Su Xingyuan with unabashed sighs. Team Wolong and others heard their team being praised, and everyone just felt proud. This is how it is in the military. If you are strong, you will naturally be remembered by more people, and you will also receive more praise. Listening to everyone's praise, Su Xingyuan waved his hands and said indifferently, as 56 points a lot. It was achieved casually. Actually, that's it. Su Xingyuan's indifferent expression fell into the eyes of everyone, and their expressions suddenly froze. My fist is hard. Our captain is really showing off, Sao. If he were not our captain, I would have to go up and compete with him. Can you beat you? I couldn't beat him, so I didn't compete with him. Shui Nian admitted it calmly, but it did not affect his excitement. Wang Ren Jianming and others laughed out loud. There are two shameless people in the team, one is the captain Su Xingyuan, and the second is Shui Nian. The people around him who were complimenting him felt a little boring, so they dispersed with their compliments. Su Xingyuan smacked his lips, as if he still had some unfinished thoughts. He was very happy with what he had just pretended to do. After the others left, Su Xingyuan turned to Wang and others, and said with a smile, Look, no one likes to listen to me when I tell the truth. Captain, if you do this, I'm really afraid that you will be beaten to death. Wang couldn't help it anymore and said with a smile. Who can compete with my A-level thunder talent? Su Xingyuan curled his lips, feeling full of cowardice. Wang Shui Nian and others pursed their lips, but they were smart enough not to continue talking. After walking out of Shang Han's office, Chen Qi and Wu Lui walked together towards the dormitory. On the way, Wu Lu turned his head and looked at Chen Qi, sighing slightly. Chen Qi, you just missed a big opportunity. Quote? Chen Qi was confused. Wu Lui opened his mouth to explain. You may not know much about Captain Zhang's background. He said he would introduce you to a teacher. That person must not be weak. He is at least in the Wuzong realm, or even a martial spirit. So many people want this, but you actually refused. Wu Lui felt a little regretful for the choice Chen Qi made. Chen Qi didn't feel anything. He already knew clearly when he didn't get his fair share in school. Only your own strength is the best. Although a teacher in the martial spirit realm sounds good, it is not his own strength after all. It's no pity, monitor. It's better to rely on yourself than to rely on others. Chen Qi said with a smile. His tone was calm, and his expression looked very indifferent. I didn't hear any regrets about being a teacher in Wulingjing. Haha, you are quite open-minded. Wu Lui laughed and patted Chen Qi on the shoulder. However, your team's performance this time really surprised me. You didn't see the surprised looks on the faces of the recruit squad leaders. Thinking about it makes me feel very happy. After he finished speaking, he paused and said, It's not considered confidential to reveal some inside information to you. Chen Qi turned his head, confused. There will be rewards in this recruit competition assessment. They will be distributed tomorrow and you will be able to get them by then. As a reward for merit points, you can use the merit points to go to the logistics office to exchange for training resources, martial arts, weapons. This news made Chen Qi feel a little excited. He is now at the 3rd level of Warrior Realm and is not far from the 4th level. If he can get training resources, his training speed will increase a lot. The War Spirit method has broken through and entered the 2nd level of Spirit Condensation Realm. Shang Han's office. Yang Guang appeared with Li Ji. After briefly talking about the situation, Shang Han raised his eyes and looked at Li Ji. He nodded expressionlessly. There is a being in the martial spirit realm behind him, and he is not afraid of Yang Guang. The reason why he nodded in agreement was because the Liji in front of him was an S-level wind elemental. There are no S-level talents among this batch of recruits. It's a pretty good seedling. As soon as it got dark, the sound of gathering sounded again. Within a month, everyone has become accustomed to this kind of work and rest time. Chen Qi and others opened their eyes as soon as they heard the assembly sound. After a simple wash, everyone arrived at the meeting point on time. Shang Han and the squad leaders were already waiting for everyone in advance. Shang Han glanced at everyone, and then slowly spoke. The overall progress in the first month of the recruit competition assessment is good. Some teams performed particularly well, including the Ice and Fire team, the Beast Hunting team and the Crouching Dragon team. The top 3 teams were overall better. After a month of running in time, you have become very familiar with each other. In the next 2 months, there will be various trainings and assessments waiting for you. Having said this, Shang Han paused and showed a smile. Competition assessments come with a purpose. Since it is a competition, there must be rewards. Each team has 10 merit points. From 10th to 4th place, each team will receive an additional 20 merit points. Each of the top 3 teams will receive an additional 30 points, and each person will receive 3 merit points. The first place team will receive an additional 50 merit points, and each person will receive an additional 10 merit points. I hope you can get more merit point rewards in the next assessment. Shang Han's eyes fell on Chen Qi for a moment, nodded slightly to him, then turned and left. Each team has 10 merit points, plus the extra 50 points for the first place, and 10 merit points for each person. Doesn't every one of us have more than a dozen merit points? Shui Nian said excitedly with a face full of excitement. Obtaining merit points is actually not easy, but it is definitely not difficult. Just because they are still in the training period of new recruits and cannot take on missions or go to the front line, this means that they have basically no channels to obtain merit points. What they didn't expect was that they would get so many points in the first month's recruit competition assessment. Merit points are of great use in the military. They are equivalent to money outside, or even more valuable than money. Every merit point is obtained by killing strange beasts. Suddenly getting so many points, everyone in the team felt a little itchy. Shui Nian, Ren Jianming and others have already discussed what to exchange these points for. Su Xingyuan stood sideways, with his hands behind his back, his body upright, and he glanced sideways at everyone. He sneered. It looks like you have never seen the world. A dozen points are all it takes to be successful like this. Wang Er and others laughed, knowing that Su Xingyuan was showing off, so they simply ignored him. Chen Qi smiled and said nothing. I was thinking about how to arrange these points. Cultivation resources must be exchanged for some resources. He is not prepared to exchange all resources. He wants to sell some merit points. According to his understanding, the military allows the trading of merit points. Chen Qi, what do you plan to change? No one boasted that he was the king. Su Xingyuan sighed in his heart, they were a bunch of blind people. Just ask Chen Qilai. Chen Qi hesitated for a moment and said, 10 points will be exchanged for some training resources, and I plan to sell the rest. Sold. After hearing his words, everyone in the team looked at him. Shui Nian's eyes widened in disbelief. You want to sell points? Su Xingyuan frowned, then thought of something and said, Chen Qi, although I understand you, I still don't recommend you sell points. You can get so many merit points in the first month of the recruit competition assessment, and there will definitely be more merit points in the remaining 2 months. You'd better improve your strength now. Merit points are hard to come by for us now. Several people were talking, and Zhang Ruya, who was not far away, also saw a few people and walked over. After hearing what everyone said, he couldn't help but ask, Chen Qi, why do you want to sell merit points? Merit points are not cheap, but they are very valuable now. Everyone spoke out to persuade. Chen Qi listened to everyone's sincere persuasion and was moved in his heart. But he still shook his head. 10 points are enough for me, and I will sell the remaining points. Everyone had no choice but to smile bitterly and shake their heads. Su Xingyuan and Zhang Ruya looked at each other, and Zhang Ruya said, Chen Qi, let's do this. If you want to sell it, just sell it to me. I've heard that one merit point is sold for 1,000. The price of merit points among new recruits is higher. I'll give you 2,000. Chen Qi did not hesitate and nodded directly, okay. This scene fell in Wu Lui's eyes, and he did not say anything to persuade him. This matter is Chen Qi's own business, and there is no need for him to persuade. Moreover, with Chen Qi's powerful battlefield control ability, it is not too difficult to obtain merit points. In the logistics department, Chen Qi received his own merit card. It stores his current points, a total of 17 points and 5 points. Sold 7 points to Zhang Ruya, totaling 14,000. Thank you, Lao Zhang. With 2,000 merit points, Zhang Ruya's price is already very high. Chen Qi did not refuse, but just recorded this feeling in his heart. Zhang Ruya smiled and said nothing, but directly changed the topic elsewhere. Chen Qi, you are now a second-level warrior, right? 10 points of merit can be exchanged for some good resources. Chen Qi smiled and said nothing more. The two of them stopped talking and walked into the resource exchange office of the logistics department together. Before coming, Chen Qi had already thought about the exchange resources. He is now at the 3rd level of warrior and is about to reach the 4th level of warrior. The war spirit technique has also entered the 2nd level of condensing spirit realm. However, if he wants to break through to the 3rd level, it will still take a lot of time and resources. What is lacking is training resources. There are 2 types of cultivation resources, one is the alien beast crystal core, and the other is the spiritual crystal. The energy contained in the former is much less than that of the latter, and the price relative to the exchange is also much less. 3 warrior 2nd level alien beast crystal cores cost Chen Qi 9 merit points. He reluctantly glanced at the various training resources displayed on the screen in front of him, from martial arts to training rooms to weapons and spiritual weapons. He had never been to Wuhan University, so he didn't know what its resources were like, but after looking at the exchangeable resources listed in the logistics office, he was already shocked by the resources in the military. Zhang Ruya was still selecting resources. Chen Qi didn't wait long and walked out of the logistics office. He raised his eyes to look at the training crowd in the distance, and the humiliating scene could not help but appear in his mind. Since you can't give me justice, then I will get it myself. Li Ji, wait for me. Suddenly, Chen Qi's pupils shrank suddenly, and his eyes fell on a person in the crowd. Li Ji, how did he come to the army? No matter how much he thought about it, Chen Qi never understood that Li Ji, who had an S-level talent and a family background in the Wuzong realm, would appear in the army. And she was still in the same recruit training with him. Chen Qi, what are you looking at? Zhang Ruya finished the exchange and walked out of the logistics office. She saw Chen Qi standing at the door, patted his shoulder, followed his gaze, and asked curiously. Chen Qi took a deep breath and smiled. It's okay, let's go. He sneered in his heart. Li Ji, you are really lingering. The 3 arrows before didn't kill you, so I will have fun with you this time. Li Ji entered the army through connections, and since he had no way to resist, Li Ji simply stayed. And he was placed in the hunting team. An S-level wind element talent, such a genius joined the hunting team, which made everyone very excited. Captain Zhang and not only did not feel disgusted with Li Ji's appearance, but welcomed him very much. The first S-level talent among the recruits joined his team, and Zhang couldn't even be happy. The addition of Li Ji greatly improved the strength of the already strong hunting team. Got rid of all the teams. S-level wind element, A-level healing talent, 5 B-level talents. This configuration is unique among the entire recruits. Being defeated head-on by Chen Qi, Zhang was holding his breath in his heart. He actually lost to an E-level archer with an A-level talent. The most important thing was that Chen Qi didn't use the longbow yet, but used the long spear that he said he knew a little bit about. Are you really such a good person? Zhang fell into self-doubt. Just at this moment, Li Ji, who possesses the S-level wind element, appeared. This gave Zhang and others hope of defeating Chen Qi and the others in the next assessment. Haha, now our team's strength has surpassed everyone else. We will definitely get first place in the next recruit competition assessment. Yes, with our captain's A-level healing talent, coupled with brother Li Ji's S-level wind element, I don't believe that we can't beat Wolong team. Everyone was very excited. After losing to Chen Qi and the others, even they felt ashamed. Coupled with the reward of merit points this time, their back molars were so envious that they were bitten to pieces. Jong-un smiled. With Li Ji's participation, they will definitely win the next competition. Brother Li Ji, let's work together in the next competition assessment and we will definitely defeat the Wolong team. Jong-un's attitude towards Li Ji was very friendly. Facing the S-level talented Li Ji, he naturally would not have the airs of a captain. Li Ji narrowed his eyes slightly and said with a smile, "That's for sure. But is the Wolong team you call very strong?" He was temporarily added to the recruits and did not participate in the previous recruit competition assessment, so naturally he did not know what happened before. Someone explained aloud. The Wolong team is very strong. They got 56 points in this recruit competition assessment, and we got a total of 34 points. HMPH, those people must have cheated. We only got 34 points with this configuration. How could they get 56 points if they didn't cheat? In addition, there is a lagging E-class archer in their team. If it wasn't cheating, who would believe it? In the team, some people still don't believe that the Wolong team can get 56 points on their own. In and out of words, he looked down upon everyone in the Wolong team, especially Chen Qi, who was a talented E-level archer. Jong-un's face was very ugly. The E-level talent mentioned by the team members is a hindrance. Then my A-level talent loses to the E-level archer talent, which is a hindrance. Doesn't this mean that I am not as good as a hindrance? Grass. Li Ji listened to everyone's chatter and finally understood it after a while. With only one A-level thunder talent and one B-level talent, the Wolong team left the hunting team by more than 20 points. When he heard the words E-level archer talent, he narrowed his eyes and asked curiously, "Is this E-level archer talent you mentioned very strong?" Everyone was stunned, not knowing what to say. Jong-un looked stiff and opened his mouth to explain. "I haven't seen that man's archer talent, but his strength has reached at least the second level of a warrior, and I was defeated by him." Li Ji was stunned and asked in disbelief, "You lost to an E-level archer talent?" This sentence is simply shrimp and pig heart. Jong-un was already very embarrassed when he lost to Chen Qi in front of so many teams. Everyone in the team was smart enough not to mention this matter, but now Li Ji actually asked this question directly. This made Jong-un a little unhappy, and he nodded solemnly, "Yes." Interesting. Li Ji glanced at Jong-un, then turned around with a smile, disdain flashing in his eyes. An A-level talent, even a healing talent, can be cultivated much faster than an E-level talent. Under such circumstances, he actually lost to an E-level archer talent. Li Ji had already labeled Jong-un as a waste in his heart. It's just that he has just joined the recruit company, so he chose not to reveal it in person. "What's the name of that E-level archer talent?" Li Ji looked at Jong-un with a chuckle, his words full of contempt. "Chen Qi." Jong-un answered directly, "If you lose, you lose. Hiding it will only make yourself more embarrassed." "Chen Qi." Li Ji was stunned. "The Chen Qi you are talking about, is he from Jincheng?" Even Li Ji was stunned at this moment. The loser who was forced to drop out of school actually defeated an A-level healing talent. What the hell is this kidding me? Do you know him? The change in Li Ji's expression made Jong-un and others stunned for a moment. After they came to their senses, they couldn't help but ask. "I know you. How could I not know you?" Li Ji laughed happily. He didn't expect that Chen Qi would join the army after dropping out of school. And it seems like he's doing pretty well. But since I met him again, I naturally wanted to meet my old friend. Jong-un and others thought that Li Ji and Chen Qi were both from Jincheng, and there seemed to be no problem in knowing each other. The other side. When Chen Qi returned to the dormitory, Li Ji's appearance appeared in his mind, and he squinted his eyes. Although he didn't know why Li Ji appeared here, he always remembered how he forced him to drop out of school. He took a deep breath, shook his head, and suppressed the thoughts in his heart. He wants to get his own justice, but his current strength is not enough. Let's improve our strength first. 3 alien beast crystal cores of the second level of warriors are enough to ensure that he can break through to the 4th level of warriors. A screen of light appeared in front of my eyes. Name, Chen Qi. Realm, 3rd level of warrior. Physique, none. Talent, 3S talent Huyi. Talent skills, 100 steps penetrating yang. Hit rate increased by 100%. Divine arrow, injecting qi and blood, Aura adds strong penetrating ability to arrows, eagle eye insight, consumes mental power to gain eagle-like vision, currently can see the distance. 1 kilometer, the distance can be seen based on one's own strength. Martial skill. Wind chasing spear, awareness realm. Kung fu. Fighting spirit technique, condensing spirit realm. Weapons. Alloy longbow, alloy spear. In just 1 month, he reached the 3rd level of martial arts. And this is despite the lack of resources, and now there are 3 warrior 2nd level alien beast crystal cores. We are 1 step closer to breaking through to the 4th level. We may be able to break through to the 4th level with the help of 3 alien beast crystal cores. The warrior is at the 4th level, with chi and blood of 80, and a punch with an explosive power of 2500, 3000 kilograms. Speed 35 per second. When Chen Qi was practicing in Shang Han's office, sitting at his desk, all the talent information selected this time has been placed in front of him. Selection for the talent program is not a direct selection. If you want to truly enter the talent plan, you need to go through layers of assessment and selection. The first month of recruit training is just a preliminary selection plan. If you want to truly enter the talent plan, you must pass more than a simple assessment. The procedures required are very complicated. The recruit company led by Shang Han is selecting candidates for the talent plan, and other recruit companies of the Third Army are also doing the same. On the left-hand side, Chen Qi's information is at the top. An E-level archer talent can enter the reserve of the talent plan, and no one may believe it. In the talent plan, the lowest ones are A-level talents. The terrifying mastery of the battlefield, the keen insight into the timing of every attack, and the perception of crises. Shang Han was also a little confused for a moment. He himself is a dual-talented genius. The combination of A-level gold element and B-level archer talent allowed him to practice much faster than his peers. In just a few years, he went from a new recruit to a company commander. This speed is already considered extremely fast. As a talented B-level archer himself, he knew very well how strong Chen Qi's control over the battlefield and his keen insight were. It's just a pity that it's an E-level talent. Shang Han shook his head slightly, but still included Chen Qi in the talent plan. What everyone doesn't know is that the first month's recruit competition assessment is to select the talent reserve for the plan. Among the 32 teams, only a small number of people can enter the talent plan. The first echelon is for candidates with A-level talents, while the second echelon is for B-level talents. As for S-class or even SS or SSS, such people have basically been taken under their command by the strong in advance. The talent plan, after all, cannot retain such a genius. He thought for a moment and took out his communicator. A phone call was made. 3 second-level warrior crystal cores of alien beasts were slowly absorbed by him. Today, Chen Qi is already at the 3rd level of martial arts and is not far from the 4th level. Although the energy contained in the 3 warrior 2nd-level alien beast crystal cores is mixed, it is quite a lot. The energy contained in the crystal core quickly flowed through his body and was slowly absorbed by him. The energy was absorbed, and Chen Qi clearly felt that his body was changing. Originally he looked a bit strong, but as the energy in the alien beast's crystal core was absorbed, his strong body gradually changed. He became leaner and looked down at the muscles on his body. Full of streamlined lines, it contains explosive power. Continue. The 4th level of warrior is about to break through. 3 alien beast crystal cores pushed Chen Qi to the 4th level of warrior realm. Feeling the changes in his body, Chen Qi's eyes were filled with light. Start practicing the war spirit technique. The war spirit technique has entered the 2nd level, the spirit condensation realm. In the spirit condensing realm, a weak spiritual energy group needs to be formed in the body. If you want to break through to the 3rd level, the first appearance of the armor shadow, you need to continuously condense this spiritual energy group. While Chen Qi was practicing, the beast hunting team Zhong'an, Li Ji and others were also continuing to practice. Although Li Ji has just joined the recruit company, his talent is not low, and it is not that he has not practiced in the outside world for a month. The 3rd level of warrior. This is Li Ji's current strength. I have to say that having a good father makes a difference. When he came in, Li Yinyan gave Li Ji a lot of training resources. Everything from elixirs to exotic beast crystal cores is available, including martial arts. When Li Ji awakened the A-level wind element, Li Yinian had already begun to prepare martial arts for him. The strength of your talent is closely related to your own strength. Although he is an S-level wind elemental now, he is limited by the fact that his current strength is only the second-level warrior. The power of the wind element cannot be exerted, and martial arts is a way to enhance one's own strength. Body skill, wind shadow step, martial skill, wind breaking slash. All are third-grade martial arts. It is not difficult for Li Yinian, who is in the Wuzong realm, to obtain higher-level martial arts, but Li Ji cannot practice it now. The third level is most suitable for him. Chen Qi, ants are just ants after all. Do you want to change your destiny through the army? Li Ji said with disdain in his eyes, wishful thinking. Recruit training begins again in the second month. The rewards for the first month's recruit competition assessment made everyone eager to get ready, and secretly vowed in their hearts to get more points. Li Ji was in the crowd, glanced sideways at Chen Qi not far away, and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Chen Qi, Su Xingyuan and others were practicing spiritual warfare and martial arts under the guidance of Wu Lui. Wu Lui was at the fourth level of martial arts, and was much stronger than Chen Qi and others in front of him. It was not difficult at all to guide them in practicing martial arts. Chen Qi, what are you looking at? Wu Lui walked to Chen Qi, patted him gently and said in a deep voice. It's okay. Chen Qi shook his head and began to devote himself wholeheartedly to the practice of martial arts. Wu Lui saw all of Chen Qi's performance. In his opinion, although Chen Qi only had an E-level archer talent, he could practice battle spirit and martial arts very quickly, and his understanding was also very high. His strength is already on par with Captain Su Xingyuan. He has decided that if Chen Qi is not selected into the talent plan, he must firmly capture Chen Qi. Although the talent is low, relying on the combat spirit method and martial arts can make up for part of the talent. Chen Qi, why do you keep looking over there today? Is there someone you know over there? Su Xingyuan also felt confused. In the past, Chen Qi was very serious about practicing martial arts and fighting spirit techniques, but today he seemed a little distracted. He glanced at Li Ji again in the crowd not far away. At this moment, Li Ji also looked at Chen Qi. The two people's eyes collided in the air. Li Ji sneered and looked back. Su Xingyuan also noticed something was wrong with Chen Qi at this moment. He followed Chen Qi's line of sight and happened to see Li Ji sneering. His eyes were slightly focused. Although he didn't know Li Ji, he felt hostility from Li Ji's smile just now. This hostility is definitely not towards him, it can only be Chen Qi. He thought for a while and seemed to have thought of something. Is that Li Ji? Withdrawing his gaze, Chen Qi nodded lightly. I didn't expect that he would also come to the recruit company. Looking at Li Ji again, Su Xingyuan smiled lightly. Don't be afraid, if he dares to bully you here, I will beat him to death. Fighting in private will result in expulsion. Chen Qi reminded. Ah, I thank you. Su Xingyuan rolled his eyes, feeling speechless at Chen Qi's reminder. The two were talking, and Li Ji walked towards them. Trash, you are good at hiding, and you hid in the army. Standing in front of Chen Qi, Li Ji glanced at Su Xingyuan, Wang Er and others who were standing next to Chen Qi, and spoke with disdain in his eyes without mercy. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Su Xingyuan and others all changed. The eyes looking at Li Ji were full of displeasure. Squad leader Wu Lui also noticed the situation here and came over. Reaching out to stop Su Xingyuan and others, Chen Qi's eyes flashed with stern expression, and he looked at Li Ji in front of him expressionlessly. Before anyone could react, he kicked him out. Bang! A figure flew several meters away. The pain quickly spread throughout the body. Before Li Ji could get up, an indifferent voice said, "Who do you think is a waste? Who are you calling a waste?" The indifferent voice sounded in Li Ji's ears, making him feel like a rampaging beast. Everyone around them fell silent, their eyes falling on Chen Qi and Li Ji. On the ground, Li Ji raised his head and looked at Chen Qi, who was standing in front of him with an expressionless face. He spat out from between his teeth, "Ant, you are seeking death." The S-level wind element suddenly activated. The cold wind elements gathered in front of him and turned into invisible wind blades that instantly slashed at Chen Qi in front of him. He wants to kill Chen Qi in front of him. An ant actually attacked him. Absolutely unforgivable. He is an S-level wind element. What is Chen Qi? A useless E-class archer. He comes from a privileged family. His father is Wu Zongjing, the deputy leader of the largest hunting group in Jincheng. What does Chen Qi have? A father who is a maggot in the sewers, a litter of poor people and trash, and he was forced to drop out of school by himself. Chen Qi's eyes narrowed slightly, and he stretched out his hand to hold the silver gun at his waist, with murderous intent flashing deep in his eyes. Li Ji wanted to kill him, but he would never sit back and wait for death. Stop, Wu Lui's voice sounded, and his figure appeared in front of Chen Qi, and he blocked several invisible wind blades with his raised hand. The eyes looking at Li Ji were full of sternness. At this time, people around also noticed the situation here. Eyes fell on the field. Zhang and others noticed the situation here and gathered around. When he saw the footprints on Li Ji's chest and the expressionless Chen Qi, an idea suddenly popped up in his mind. Li Ji is too impulsive. Why did you take action all of a sudden? Li Ji, what are you doing? Feng Quan's face changed slightly. He hurried to the field, glanced at Wu Lui with a dark face, and then asked in a deep voice. Li Ji was angry and turned to look at Feng Quan. He was the one who made the move first. Feng Quan's heart sank. He glanced at Chen Qi, and then said to Wu Lui, Lao Wu, are you going to lead your soldiers like this? If you fight in the army and attack your comrades, is there any discipline? Squad leader, he was the one who provoked me first. Su Xingyuan and others, as well as Wang Er and others, explained aloud. After saying that, he looked at Li Ji with anger hidden in his eyes. It's really the evil person who files the complaint first. Wu Lui nodded slightly. Old Feng, you heard it too. It was your soldiers who provoked me first. I don't think there is any problem with Chen Qi taking action. He would never believe Li Ji. During today's training, he had already noticed Chen Qi and Li Ji. During training, Li Ji frequently provoked him, and he saw all of this. Feng Quan was startled for a moment, then smiled instead of getting angry. So, all this is still the fault of my soldiers. Yes, Wu Lu nodded expressionlessly. Su Xingyuan and others secretly gave a thumbs up while listening. Chen Qi was a little moved. He looked at Feng Quan and Li Ji, whose eyes were full of coldness, and explained, Squad leader Feng, it was indeed Li Ji who provoked me first. I kept giving in, but he kept pushing even further. HMPH. Feng Quan snorted angrily and glanced at Chen Qi, Wu Lui, Su Xingyuan and others. Military regulations stipulate that fighting without permission is prohibited, otherwise military regulations will be followed. Even if he provoked you, he didn't take action against you. It would be wrong for you to take action. Chen Qi raised his eyes, and a light flashed in his eyes. So, squad leader Feng thinks that all this is my fault. Feng Quan had a cold face and did not answer but looked at Wu Lui. Lao Wu, your soldiers violated military regulations first. What do you think we should do about this? Wu Lu glanced at Chen Qi. Although he didn't know what grudges there were between Chen Qi and Li Ji, judging from today's performance, the two must have known each other and had some grudges in the past. Today's conflict is just a trigger. Then don't worry about it, old Feng. I will take care of the soldiers under my own command. Okay. Feng Quan laughed angrily at Wu Lui's words, and looked at Wu Lui and others in front of him, then find the company commander. Before he finished speaking, Shang Han's voice sounded. What's up? The strong Shang Han stepped forward, and the crowd automatically moved out of the way. Sharp eyes glanced around Feng Quan, Wu Lui and others. When Feng Quan, Wu Lui and others saw Shang Han's sharp gaze, they couldn't help but look away and did not dare to look at him. Having reached the Wuzong realm, the aura he exudes inadvertently is enough to intimidate everyone. Company commander, Chen Qimu has no military regulations and beats his comrades privately. Feng Quan stood next to Li Ji, performed a military salute, and then spoke. Shang Han glanced at the footprints on Li Ji's chest, then looked at Wu Lui and Chen Qi. He asked in a deep voice, Wu Lui, what's going on? Before Wu Lui could speak, Chen Qi spoke first. Company commander, Li Ji frequently provokes us first. Su Xingyuan and others spoke out one after another. Among the crowd, Zhang Rui also understood the ins and outs of the matter, and he remembered Li Ji's appearance clearly. On the day he arrived at the logistics department, he discovered that there was a grudge between Chen Qi and Li Ji. Thinking of this, he stood firmly beside Chen Qi. Both sides held their own opinions, and Shang Han didn't say much. Since you like fighting so much, I'll give you a chance. Go and fight in the ring. Li Ji was forced in by Yang Guang, and he was a little disgusted with this kind of thing. He only accepted it because Li Ji was an S-level wind elemental. Unexpectedly, in just a few days, Li Ji and Chen Qi would start a fight. Fighting in the military is normal, but private fighting is absolutely not allowed. The two of them have now violated military regulations. As the company commander, Shang Han simply let the two of them enter the ring. Okay. Li Ji's eyes flashed with coldness, and he looked at Chen Qi with an undisguised cold look. Chen Qi glanced at Feng Quan, who looked ugly, and nodded in agreement. The grudge between Li Ji and him will be resolved sooner or later. He originally wanted to wait until he was strong enough to get his own justice. Since Li Ji is showing his face to him now, he will collect some interest first. The only pity is that I can't kill him. Someone asked for a fight in the ring. The news swept through the entire recruit company in an instant. A crowd of hundreds of people surrounded the ring. This is the first time for the recruit company to compete in the ring in Rio. When you get into the ring, it's not just a verbal spat. Everything has to rely on strength to speak for itself. Chen Qi defeated Zhang En, and everyone saw it. But at that time, many people felt that the failure was caused by Zhang En's carelessness. No one had ever thought that Chen Qi's strength would crush him. Not long after, Li Ji and Chen Qi appeared on the stage. Li Ji held a long knife, the blade flashing with cold light. Chen Qi, on the other hand, was holding a silver gun and looking calmly at Li Ji across from him. There was a flash of sternness in his eyes. The humiliation brought to him by Li Ji kept echoing in his mind. All the past events appeared in front of his eyes, which made him hold the spear with a little force. Start. As Shang Han's voice fell, Li Ji bent his knees slightly and rushed towards Chen Qi like a cannonball. The long sword in his hand flashed with light, splitting the air and slashing straight at Chen Qi. Chapter 31. The blade of the knife flashed with cold light, and Li Ji's eyes were full of coldness. With this strike, he had no intention of letting Chen Qi go. The third level of warrior realm. The onlookers discovered Li Ji's strength immediately and couldn't help but exclaimed. Hiss, you are in the third level of warrior realm when you first come in. Is S-level talent so strong? You know what, although the S-level talent can be practiced faster, it cannot be too fast. If someone can achieve such a high level of strength, he must be from a good family background. Indeed, how could it be possible to improve so quickly without sufficient resources? Chen Qi is in danger now. Although Chen Qi defeated Zhang En, he lost because of Zhang En's carelessness. Moreover, Zhang En is a second-level warrior, and Li Ji is a little higher than Zhang En. Chen Qi is going to lose. Everyone was talking a lot, and they seemed to have predicted the outcome of this arena. Chen Qi will lose. This is the opinion of the onlookers. However, some people hold different opinions. Among them, there is Zhang En. Although he lost to Chen Qi for a certain reason, he was the only one who knew that the real reason for losing to Chen Qi was not because of his carelessness, but because Chen Qi was indeed stronger than him. Chen Qi is a third-level warrior. At this moment, he suddenly realized. I was shocked that an E-level archer with talent could practice faster than my A-level one. However, there is also a gap between the third level of warriors. There are several levels between S-class and E-class, and there is an even greater gap in the talents that the two can display. Moreover, Chen Qi, an E-level archer with talent, actually chose to use a spear to fight against himself, an S-level wind element. He was really looking for death. There was a faint glow on the long sword's blade, and when it was slashed out, there was a faint sound of the air being torn apart. It was as if even the space was cut open by this knife. Every time Li Ji swung his sword, he carried strong killing intent and power, as if he wanted to cut Chen Qi in two. Chen Qi raised his eyes slightly. Is he a third-level warrior? With the silver gun in hand, he instantly picked up the long knife. Clang! The long knife and the silver gun collided, causing sparks to fly and making a deafening impact sound. The attack was blocked by Chen Qi, and Li Ji was a little surprised. He jumped back in the air with his previous strength. As soon as he landed, the next moment, the third-level martial arts skill, Feng Ying Step was activated. It turned into an afterimage and disappeared in place. Hiss. What a fast speed. This is a body martial art, at least 2nd grade, or even 3rd grade. I'm so envious. Is this your family fortune? What's the use of your envy? If I give you a 3rd grade martial arts skill, can you practice it so quickly? Practicing martial arts skills is related to talent. If you have AC level talent, don't dream about it. Alas, is the gap between people so big? Ignoring the exclamations of the onlookers, Chen Qi, who was in the ring, saw Li Ji disappear, and his originally dark eyes turned amber. Eagle Eye Insight. Eagle Eye Insight not only has a powerful vision, but also has a powerful capturing ability. In the eyes of the onlookers, Li Ji's figure suddenly disappeared, but in Chen Qi's eyes, the talent of Eagle Eye Insight had already captured Li Ji's figure. Clang! The sound of gold and iron clashed, the silver gun was blocked in front of him, and the long knife was only a few centimeters away from Chen Qi, and it landed on his chest. Li Ji was surprised, his eyes full of disbelief. He has reached the level of proficiency in the 3rd level body martial arts skill, Wind Shadow Step. Although he has not reached the level of understanding, there is absolutely no way that Chen Qi, an E-level talent, can stop it. Moreover, he is still a 3rd level warrior. How could Chen Qi be able to stop him? Is he a 4th level warrior? A conjecture flashed through Li Ji's mind that even he found incredible. After blocking Li Ji's knife, Chen Qi looked at the astonished Li Ji in front of him calmly, with a sneer on his lips. Is this all S-level talent? Waste. Ah. The words uttered in Chen Qi's indifferent voice made Li Ji feel angry. He only felt that he was insulted by Chen Qi. You are a useless E-class archer. Why? Li Ji said with a cold light in his eyes and a sinister look in his eyes. After the words fell, the figure disappeared again, leaving an afterimage in place. Chen Qi remained as still as a mountain, and the silver gun in his hand shot out from time to time, blocking the sharp sword light every time. For a moment, the entire arena was filled with the afterimage of Li Ji and the sounds of gold and iron. Under the ring, Wu Lui and all the recruit squad leaders were also watching. Seeing the fight between the two people on the ring, everyone was talking a lot. The training speed of S-level talents is indeed very powerful. 3rd level body movements and martial arts can be cultivated to the proficiency level in a short period of time. The speed has far exceeded the level of 3rd level warriors. Yes, the shadow step is a physical martial art. When paired with Li Ji's S-level wind element, it greatly increases his speed. If I were not at the 5th level of martial arts, I would definitely not be able to defend against Li Ji's attack. Wu Lu glanced at Feng Quan, he grinned and said nothing. Feng Quan, on the other hand, had an ugly face, and after looking at Wu Lui expressionlessly, he turned his attention to the two people on the ring again. I thought to myself, a person who has awakened the S-level wind element and reached the 3rd level of a warrior can't defeat an E-level archer. Isn't this crazy? Shang Han's expression remained calm and his eyes were calm. Although Li Ji's speed is very fast, in the eyes of people like Shang Han and Wu Lui, Li Ji's speed is very slow. The strength gap between the two sides is too big, spanning several major realms. In the ring, Chen Qi was as immovable as a mountain, blocking Li Ji's attack every time he made a move. Firelight splashed around, reflecting on Chen Qi's face. Shang Han's eyes flashed with thought as he continued to look at the two people on the ring. The outcome of this battle seems to have been predicted in his heart. The same goes for Wu Lui and others. Compared to Shang Han and others who were strong, Su Xingyuan, Wang Er, Xuan Yan, as well as Zhang Ruya and Zhao Juxin. Zhang and others were already dumbfounded. The invisible wind blade slashed towards Chen Qi, and Li Ji's speed was so fast that it left a trail of afterimages. Everyone asked themselves, if they were the ones in the ring, could they stop Li Ji? Compared with Li Ji's speed, Chen Qi's strength shocked them. All go. Chen Qi's strength is at least the 3rd level of a warrior. He can block such a fast attack. Is this an E-level talent? If I hadn't known that Chen Qi was an E-level talent, I would have thought that Li Ji was the E-level talent. Chen Qi was the S-level talent. It refreshed my understanding. E-level talents can also compete with S-level talents back and forth, and I have an illusion that Li Ji will lose. Quote. As soon as this idea came up, it was quickly suppressed. Is this possible? Impossible. How could it be possible? No hope. Su Xingyuan and Zhang Ruya stood together. Zhang Ruya raised her eyes and looked at the two people on the ring. He sighed. Chen Qi is so awesome. Su Xingyuan rubbed his stiff mouth and cursed, pervert. He is an A-level thunder talent, and he would not even dare to say that he would win against Li Ji. Chen Qi was as motionless as a mountain, standing like a tall mountain, which already made him shout that he was a pervert. As for Chen Qi's victory, he didn't expect that. Although the warriors on both sides are both at the 3rd level, one has an S-level wind element, and the other only has an E-level archer talent. Chen Qi chose to use his silver spear against Li Ji, which was not an advantage in itself. Zhang Ruya nodded silently. He is indeed a pervert. He said in an inaudible voice. This kind of talent is almost comparable to SS level. Chen Qi was as motionless as a mountain, standing upright on the ring. The silver gun clicked out and sparks sputtered. Alloy weapons are very hard. The two have collided hundreds of times in a short period of time. Chen Qi once again blocked his attack, and Li Ji appeared in front of Chen Qi, spitting out the weak light of the long knife in his hand, like a poisonous snake spitting out a message. Li Ji's sinister gaze fell on Chen Qi's face. Shock flashed in his eyes. Even though he had only just mastered the 3rd-grade Shenfa martial art, Feng Yingbu himself, it was definitely not something that Chen Qi could capture in front of him. Hundreds of shots were blocked by Chen Qi calmly. This fact has already made Li Ji feel confused. The silver gun blocked the long knife in his hand, and Li Zaizenhan spoke. You can never stop me. The silver spear blocked the long knife at an angle. Chen Qi's eyes were calm and his voice was calm. Waste. The S-level wind element is really a waste on you. Trash always thinks that others are just like him, so he can only slap him in the face with the facts. His past pride and self-confidence were severely trampled under his feet, and he was able to truly realize that he was the waste. Having said this, Chen Qi raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and looked at Li Ji with undisguised disdain in his eyes. Li Ji, now do you know who is the loser? Chen Qi, I will definitely kill you. These words completely angered Li Ji, who was on the verge of anger. The hundreds of previous attacks against Chen Qi were like a high mountain. No matter how many attacks he made, they would all come back in vain when facing this high mountain. And this Gaoshan was forced by him to drop out of school and was a waste that he had always looked down upon. He is Gao Shan, why should Chen Qi, a poor and useless person? He is not convinced. Drawing the knife back, Li Ji held the long knife at an angle. The knife glowed and hissed, like a poisonous snake spitting out a message. He said sharply, Whirlwind continuous slash. 3rd level martial arts wind breaking slash. After the words fell, Li Ji's figure disappeared again and reappeared in front of Chen Qi, with the long knife in his hand like a strong wind, and the light of the knife burst out. Kill Chen Qi directly. The S-level wind element also activated again at this moment, and several invisible wind blades flew towards Chen Qi. The air was cut open, making a sound of breaking through the air. This time, he fought hard. He must kill Chen Qi. Even though he was expelled from the army, there was still Li Yinyan, a 7th-level martial artist standing behind him. Li Ji's change fell into the eyes of the onlookers. Wukao, Li Ji tried his best. Hiss, such a fast attack, and the invisible wind blade, the S-level talent is really scary. Can Chen Qi stop it? No way. Li Ji has obviously left no stone unturned. If Chen Qi can't stop him, he will at least be seriously injured. Terrible. An E-level archer using a spear can actually force Li Ji, an S-level wind elemental, to this point. Wu Lui squinted his eyes, and Li Ji took action again. He saw clearly. Although he couldn't see the wind blade, he could catch it with his weak mental power. When your strength reaches the level of a martial artist, you will begin to cultivate your spiritual power. When you practice the battle spirit method, you will cultivate your spiritual power invisibly. Mental power cultivation is very slow. If you want to increase the speed, you can only practice unique mental power skills. However, such skills require high talent and mental power, and are not something ordinary people can practice. The most important thing is that this kind of skill is very rare. Wu Lui's eyes narrowed slightly. Can it still be blocked? Compared to Wu Lui, Su Xingyuan, Zhang Ruya and others were extremely nervous at the moment. Everyone's hearts tightened when they saw Li Ji once again displaying the 3rd-level martial art, Wind Break. He couldn't help but lower his breath and stared closely at the two people on the ring. Everyone was very nervous. Shang Han was the only person in the field who was not nervous. As the strongest person, he watched all the fight between the two in the ring. With 2 third-level martial arts skills, Shang Han glanced at Li Ji lightly and shook his head slightly in his heart. Li Ji's impression in his heart was not good. If you win, you deserve it. If you lose, you are trash. On the other hand, Chen Qi on the other side was more surprised. Chen Qi is an E-level archer and never used a longbow in the battle from beginning to end. He chose a long spear, and Chen Qi's marksmanship was obviously higher than that of Li Ji. From the beginning to the end, Chen Qi never took the initiative. Shang Han saw everything in his eyes, with a smile in his eyes. Instead of practicing martial arts that match his own talent, he chose to practice spear martial arts, and his speed was so fast. Regarding this arena, Shang Han no longer valued winning or losing. In his heart, Chen Qi had already won. In the arena, facing Li Ji's continuous attacks, Chen Qi took action for the first time. He grasped the spear suddenly, and a cold look appeared in his eyes. Sweeping towards the side, clang, several wind blades were swept away instantly, leaving sparks on the gun body. He raised his eyes and raised the corner of his mouth slightly. Although he couldn't see the wind blade, he could vaguely catch the trajectory of the wind blade. And this is the power of eagle-eye insight. A shot swept away several wind blades. Chen Qi took half a step back with his right foot, and then suddenly exploded. The tip of the spear was dazzling, breaking through the air, and pointed towards the sword light. Kang! The huge force coming from the long knife almost made Li Ji unable to hold the knife, and his whole arm went numb instantly. His eyes were horrified. How come Chen Qi's speed and strength are so fast? And how could he capture the trajectory of the wind blade? His whole mind was filled with doubts. Before he could think too much, Chen Qi's figure appeared in front of him. Buzz! The sharp and cold spear tip was pressed against Li Ji's throat. The strong wind from the gun tip cut open the skin of his throat, and blood seeped out. An indifferent voice said, "You lose." Feeling the pain in his throat and the coldness of the gun tip, Li Ji's eyes were filled with fear. He actually lost. Impossible. I might lose to Chen Qi, a loser. Not convinced. I'm not convinced. As the voice announcing Chen Qi's victory sounded, Chen Qi turned his back to Li Ji and walked towards the bottom of the ring. However, at this moment, Li Ji's eyes flashed with cold light, and he slashed out with the long knife in his hand. Trash, you die. He really couldn't accept the fact that he was an S-level wind elemental. How could he lose to Chen Qi, a poor waste with an E-level talent? Li Ji, what are you doing? Li Ji, Chen Qi, be careful. When Wu Lui, Su Xingyuan, Zhang Ria and others saw this scene, their expressions changed. Wu Lui moved and was about to step onto the ring. However, when he just moved his feet, Chen Qi, who had his back to Li Ji, felt the light of the sword behind him. A sneer flashed in his eyes changed, and he stabbed backward with the spear in his hand. A little bit of cold light arrives first. Come back. Laugh. This time, Chen Qi did not hold back. The silver spear instantly passed through Li Ji's shoulder, and then the tip of the spear was like a sharp blade, directly cutting off Li Ji's left arm. The arm holding the long knife was cut to the shoulder level, and severe pain instantly spread throughout Li Ji's body. Screams followed. Ah, Li Ji! Feng Quan exclaimed, stepping out to the ring. Looking at Li Ji's appearance, his face was extremely ugly. Shang Han glanced at Chen Qi, who was holding a silver gun on the ring. His eyes fell on Li Ji, and he said in a calm voice, "Send him to the infirmary." Feng Quan left with Li Ji and the broken arm that fell on the ring. There was total silence around the arena, falling into a state of silence. The onlookers looked at the figure holding the silver gun on the ring, their eyes full of shock. Among them, Zhang An's team and others are undoubtedly the ones. S-level wind element, the third level of warrior. When they thought that Li Ji was no match for Chen Qi, they felt terrified. This is not an E-level talent. This is an SSS talent, I'm sorry. When they heard that Chen Qi, an E-level talent, was going to compete with Li Ji, an S-level wind elemental player, except for a limited number of people who had confidence in Chen Qi, everyone else was concerned about the outcome of the battle. There is no confidence whatsoever. Although Chen Qi practiced the war spirit technique at a faster speed than ordinary people, it was only the war spirit technique. What really affects the outcome of the fight depends on the strength of both parties and the level of their respective martial arts training. Li Ji has reached proficiency in 2/3 level martial arts, body martial arts and sword martial arts. The power that 3rd level martial arts can unleash is much stronger than the 1st level martial arts that Chen Qi and the others have practiced. No one expected that Chen Qi's marksmanship had reached the realm of understanding. Is this Chen Qi really an E-level talent? After coming back to his senses, all the onlookers had such doubts in their minds. Hiss, Chen Qi is so awesome. An E-level talent beats an S-level talent. This seems to have never happened before, right? Yeah, the gap between E-level talent and S-level talent is too big, it's too crazy. It turns out that low-level talents can also defeat high-level talents. Chen Qi, at this moment, I am your crazy fan. You can pull him down. Chen Qi can defeat Li Ji because he has cultivated his martial arts to the level of understanding and he is still a 4th level martial artist. Do you think you can do it? The 4th level of a warrior. I am only at the 1st level of a warrior now. Oh my god, an E-level archer didn't choose a longbow as his talent, but chose to compete with a spear. The main reason was that he actually won. How come I, a B-level person, feel inferior to Chen Qi, an E-level person? Everyone was talking a lot, looking at Chen Qi with reverence and shock in their eyes. It's not that low-level talents can defeat high-level talents, but that is based on the situation that the difference is no more than 1 level. The difference between E-class and S-class is 6 levels. This is unprecedented and unheard of. Chen Qi didn't know what everyone was thinking. He clapped the silver gun in his hand, and the silver gun changed and turned into a silver stick again. After walking down from the ring, the figures of Zhang Ruya, Zhao Juxin, Wang Xuanyan and others appeared in front of him. The shock in Zhao Juxin's eyes still hasn't dissipated. Looking at Chen Qi with a calm expression in front of him, Zhao Juxin smiled bitterly and shook his head. Chen Qi, I am completely convinced. Wang gave a thumbs up. Awesome. Xuanyan has a more out-of-the-box personality. He looked Chen Qi up and down, came closer, and said with a smile, Brother Chen, how about you be the captain? I think I have a better future with you. Chen Qi smiled and shrugged. If you are not afraid that Su Xingyuan will hang you up and beat you, then I have no objection. Then forget it. Xuanyan shrank his neck, smiled and waved his hands. Zhang Ruya, who was tall and muscular, stretched out her hand, patted Chen Qi, and said with a smile, Lang Yan is unique and unparalleled in the world. Chen Qi looked at Wang with a smile and said jokingly, See, Wang learn from Lao Zhang. Don't open your mouth and keep silent. You are awesome. You are so uneducated. Wang Su Xingyuan came slowly, and after standing still, he looked Chen Qi up and down with sharp eyebrows and eyes, nodded slightly, and said lightly, Don't be proud, you are a little S-class, I can suppress him with one hand. Wang Xuanyan and others turned around and pretended not to recognize Su Xingyuan. Zhao Juxin was stunned for a moment, then came to his senses and laughed. Su Xingyuan's title of Force King has been spread among the recruits for a long time. This was the first time he saw Su Xingyuan showing off, and he didn't react immediately. Zhang Ruya and Chen Qi were already very familiar with Su Xingyuan's style of forcing the king. After hearing what he said, Chen Qi nodded with a smile, that's for sure. For a small S-class, Captain Su can make him bow down with just one glance. Low-key. Su Xingyuan waved his hand, pretending to be a master. After he finished speaking, he couldn't hold it in any longer, laughed out loud, and complained, 4th level warrior, you can pretend better than me. Chen Qi, Wu Lui and Shang Han walked towards him. Wu Lui couldn't hide the smile on his face at this moment. The soldiers under his command defeated S-level talents head-on with E-level talents. He was very proud to tell such a thing. Squad leader, company commander. Chen Qi performed a military salute and said hello. Shang Han nodded slightly. 4th level warrior, good speed. I can practice marksmanship and martial arts to the realm of understanding in a short period of time, and my understanding is also very good. Wu Lui smiled and winked at Chen Qi. Chen Qi didn't understand the meaning. Before he could think about it, Shang Han's next words cleared up his doubts. E-level talents can defeat S-level talents head-on. This has never happened before in the military. Shang Han seemed to be in a good mood. After speaking, he looked at Wu Lui beside him. Wu Lui, Chen Qi broke a record in the army. What do you think is a good reward? Wu Lui and Shang Han were very familiar with each other. At this time, Shang Han didn't pretend to be the company commander, and he was more casual. Company commander, why don't you reward Chen Qi with a set of combat armor? You really dare to think about it? Shang Han said angrily. His eyes fell on Chen Qi, and he pondered for a moment. You can't use the war soldier armor even if you give it to you. You need to have the strength to reach the martial soldier realm. I'll reward you with a set of battle armor to match your strength. Su Xingyuan, Zhang Ruya and others around him were extremely envious. War armor. The price of that thing in the military is not cheap. When the logistics office exchanged resources, they could clearly see that a set of combat armor was worth 3,000 merit points. It would be very difficult to exchange their merits for combat armor with their current strength. Unexpectedly, Chen Qi would be able to obtain a set of combat armor when he was in the recruit company. Chen Qi was stunned. He didn't expect that Shang Han would reward himself with a set of combat armor. After coming back to his senses, he said, "Thank you, company commander." Shang Han waved his hand and said without hesitation, "I told you to introduce the teacher to you before. But people say they don't like people with low talent." Chen Qi had no regrets about this. Shang Han paused and smiled. "I just don't know if that person will change his mind after knowing your performance today. Practice well." After saying that, he turned around and left. Wu Lui smiled and said to Chen Qi, "You are really awesome. The 4th level of martial artist, the 2nd level of combat spirit method, the level of mastery of martial arts. Among the new recruits, you are well deserved to be the number 1 with your strength." When Su Xingyuan heard this, he looked up to the sky and sighed. "I didn't expect that Chen Qi, the guy with thick eyebrows and big eyes, is the one who puts on the most pretense." Infirmary. Li Ji was lying on the hospital bed. The military doctor responsible for the treatment was an A-level therapeutic talent, and his strength had reached the 2nd level of martial arts. The broken arm has now been reattached. The military doctor responsible for the treatment looked at Li Ji, who was pale and lifeless on the hospital bed, and shook his head slightly. His character is too bad, so he can't be hurt like this, right? In the army, he had seen many people more seriously injured than Li Ji. He saw many limbs being violently torn off, and even some that were almost cut off at the waist. An arm was cut off. In his eyes, such an injury was just an ordinary injury. With the combination of his healing talent and the military's healing medicine, Li Ji's arm would be safe. "Okay, have a good rest." The military doctor said something, then turned and left. Feng Quan, Zhang and others looked at Li Ji, whose eyes were lifeless, and their hearts sank. Zhang An said in a deep voice, "Chen Qi was too harsh. In a fight, one of Li Ji's arms was cut off. What on earth did he want to do?" The team members behind him remained silent in a tacit understanding. They just glanced at Li Ji and hesitated to speak. He shook his head secretly in his heart. If Li Ji hadn't carried out a sneak attack behind Chen Qi, Li Ji would never have been like this. The reason why Li Ji became like this, to put it poorly, was purely his own fault. Feng Quan interrupted Zhang An with an ugly expression. "Chen Qi is not to blame for this matter. The winner has been announced in the ring competition. Li Ji takes action again, which has broken the rules of the ring. To put it more seriously, this is a disregard for military regulations. He is lucky that the company commander did not kill him on the spot." Zhang An and the other recruits didn't know this, but Feng Quan knew it very well. Shang Han just couldn't get rid of the dirt in his eyes. Even though Li Ji was an S-level wind elemental, he blatantly broke the rules of the arena, ignored the military regulations, and attacked his comrades. This has greatly violated the military regulations. The moment he saw Li Ji take action, his heart sank. Fortunately, Shang Han did not take action directly. "Squad leader, is Li Ji okay?" Zhang An was very concerned about Li Ji's injury. An S-level talent is too important to their entire team. It's not a big problem. The arm has been reattached and it will be fine after a while of rest. Feng Quan shook his head and said truthfully, "Li Ji is now solely to blame." Feng Quan had no other thoughts. Okay, let's go. After letting Zhang and others leave, Feng Quan stood beside the hospital bed, his eyes falling on Li Ji. After a while, he shook his head helplessly. I can't help you with this matter. You ignored the military regulations first. Chen Qi, he is forced to fight back. You know this very well. Li Ji was silent. After a moment, a hoarse voice sounded. He did it on purpose. What? Feng Quan was startled. He did it on purpose. He deliberately provoked me and constantly provoked me with words. After declaring victory, he deliberately turned his back to me. All of this was his conspiracy. I fell into his trap. Li Ji recalled the battle from beginning to end in his mind. He didn't miss every detail. And now, he finally understood. From the moment Chen Qi saw him, he had already made plans for the next step. Even entering the ring was deliberately guided by him. It's all so familiar. Feng Quan's heart trembled as he listened to Li Ji's analysis, and shock flashed through his eyes. Does Chen Qi really have such a terrible character? From beginning to end, Li Ji was like a puppet, falling step by step into the trap he had prepared in advance. This is because the two of them do not have enough understanding of Chen Qi. If they had seen Chen Qi controlling the battlefield with their own eyes, they would understand that Chen Qi definitely has such ability. Where's the evidence? Do you have any evidence? Feng Quan was shocked by how terrible Chen Qi was, and pitied Li Ji in front of him. He was led step by step, but in the end there was no evidence. Li Ji's back teeth were almost broken. He made a fist with his right hand and his knuckles were a little white. Son of a fool. I want him to die. I must want him to die. Li Ji, calm down. Feng Quan said in a deep voice. You are not able to bear the consequences of attacking the families of serving soldiers and yourself. Not even your dad. Don't worry, I'm not that stupid. Li Ji's eyes were full of coldness. If Chen Qi can use this method, I can use it too. Seeing Li Ji like this, Feng Quan didn't say much. If Li Ji wanted to die, he would never accompany him. From the beginning to the end, he only received a little benefit and took extra care of Li Ji. Is this the Zan armor? From the logistics department, Wu Lui accompanied Chen Qi to receive the Zan armor. In front of him, a set of black armor with a metallic luster was hung on the shelf in front of him. Reaching out to touch it, it felt cold, and a faint light flashed across the surface of the armor. The battle armor is suitable for the warrior realm, and can withstand up to a full blow from the 9th level warrior realm. Wu Lui explained with a smile. No matter what kind of talent it is. Chen Qi was curious and touched the armor fondly. What are you thinking about? It's just a normal attack. If it hits a metal or other too aggressive weapon, it still can't be blocked. It can only hurt you less. Hearing this, Chen Qi nodded. If the battle armor can withstand any attack from a warrior at the 9th level, then it is simply not too powerful. Squad leader, do you have one? Chen Qi was curious. Wu Lui, who has reached the level of a martial artist, should also have such a armor. Yes. After Wu Lui finished speaking, the military uniform on his body changed. In a short period of time, the original green military uniform had turned into a reddish armor. War Master A requires 50,000 merit points and can withstand a full blow from a general below the 3rd level. Mist Grass, 50,000. A warrior level armor with 50,000 merit points. I can't afford it, I can't afford it at all. But now that I have a battle armor, it's pretty good. Hey, brat, everything you said is true. Didn't you lie to me? In Shang Han's office, he crossed his legs on the table and held a cigarette between his fingers. In front of him, on the 3D projection screen, an old man in his 60s was looking up at Shang Han, with cloudy eyes. It's full of light. I didn't lie to you. Shang Han shook his head, but what's the use of this? Don't you always look down on others? Zhang Zesheng, S-level archer, martial spirit realm. That's what I said before, but I didn't say it today. Zhang Zesheng didn't look like he was in the martial spirit realm at all. He shook his head and refused to admit that he had said it before. I still need to observe the details. My strength is still declining. I may fall to Wuzong in a few years. Zhang Zesheng said calmly, with no trace of fear in his expression. At this end, Shang Han's expression dimmed slightly, and he squeezed out a smile. Teacher, you must hold on, I will find a way to solve your problem. Zhang Zesheng waved his hand and sat next to the bookcase. There were many books scattered around him. There was a sharp light in his cloudy eyes. I will never die before I find out the matter. Shang Han shook his head helplessly. Zhang Zesheng was the teacher of his archer talent. When I met Zhang Zesheng, he was just an ordinary martial artist, but Zhang Zesheng was at the 7th level martial king realm at that time. In just over 10 years, Zhang Zesheng fell from the martial king realm to the martial spirit realm, and this situation has lasted for decades. Gather. Time flies, and half a month of the second month of recruit training has passed quietly. The familiar sound of gathering sounded again. In just 1 minute, everyone had gathered. Shang Han's tall figure stood in front of everyone, and his tiger eyes fell on everyone, making everyone feel the pressure doubled. The strength of the Wuzong realm can make people shudder with just a plain look. As the saying goes, it takes 1,000 days to raise an army, but it lasts only a moment. After more than a month of recruit training, your strength has improved a lot, and your martial arts skills have at least entered the first stage of training. A warrior who has not experienced fighting is just a toothless tiger. You experienced the first battle in the first month, but it was completed with sufficient security. Listening to Shang Han's words, everyone present could not help but feel excited. Although Shang Han's tone was calm, it had invisibly increased the pressure on everyone. Chen Qi's eyes were full of light. In more than a month, his strength had entered the 6th level of warrior realm. Su Xingyuan also entered the 5th level of warrior realm. 6th level warrior realm, strength 3500, 4000 kilograms, speed 45 per second. The 5th level of warrior, strength 3000, 3500 kilograms, speed 40 per second. This is just the strength of the warrior himself. If different talents are used, the power and speed obtained will also be different. Li Ji did not leave the army, but stayed. He glanced at Chen Qi, who was standing 2 rows in front of him, squinted his eyes, and a cold look flashed in his eyes. Chen Qi, don't even think about getting first place in this actual battle. I will definitely get back the humiliation I suffered. Being in the army, coupled with warnings from Feng Quan, Yang Guang and others. Li Ji did not choose to use outside forces to take action against Chen Qi's family. The military regulations were placed here, and he couldn't bear it. Taking advantage of the opportunity of actual combat to attack Chen Qi was something he had been looking forward to for a long time. The changes in everyone's expressions all fell in Shang Han's eyes. His eyes were calm, his expression was serious, and he said in a low voice, "To be a soldier, you must look like a soldier. This time it's actual combat. This is also your second actual combat. This actual combat will affect your future combat units. The second actual battle will still implement the full member evaluation system. The team with the highest evaluation will receive resource inclines and rewards." Speaking of this, his voice rose slightly, and his tone became more serious. This time the actual strategy is different from the first time. There will be veterans of the Beast Suppression Army working with you. Death. You haven't experienced it before, but this time you will remember it for a lifetime. No one is protecting your safety. You need to make your own judgment to reduce casualties and achieve your goals. After the words fell, everyone's expressions changed slightly. Are veterans involved? Could someone else die? Su Xingyuan turned his head slightly to look at Chen Qi in the team and felt Su Xingyuan's gaze. Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan exchanged glances. Su Xingyuan smiled brightly, and Chen Qi nodded with a light smile. Because the number of participants has changed, the method of action this time has also changed. Each team will be expanded to 50 people. You need to form your own team for specific members. The captain recommends himself, and the time is 3 minutes. After the words fell, several eyes fell on Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan. Zhang Ruya and Zhao Juxin looked at each other with excitement in their eyes. Expanding the team to 50 people means that some teams will be broken up and merged into other teams. They immediately thought of Chen Qi and his team. Chen Qi also looked at Zhang Ruya for the first time. Seeing Zhang Ruya looking at her, Chen Qi smiled and waved to him. Team members Zhang Ruya and Zhao Juxin were quickly merged into the Wolong team. Xingyuan, Chen Qi. Zhang Ruya smiled and nodded in greeting. Haha, Lao Zhang, we are finally together. Su Xingyuan smiled brightly. Such a handsome face is supposed to bring good luck, and if there are female soldiers, it may attract many people. It's just a pity that they are all men here. Li Ji had a sinister look in his eyes, glanced at the Wolong team, looked away, and started to form a new team with Zhang and others. Although he was defeated by Chen Qi as an S-level talent, as the only S-level talent among the recruits, there were still many people who wanted to form a team with him. Sun Fa, Zhou Ning and others formed a team. Soon, all the teams were formed spontaneously. There are 5 teams in total. Seeing that the team had been formed, Shang Han didn't say much and dropped another piece of news. The actual combat participation this time is not only yours, but also teams from other divisions of the Beast Suppression Army. After finishing speaking, regardless of the changes in everyone's expressions, he continued, there is a hidden tide of small beasts in Lingu County. Operation Goal: clear out the beast tide. The combat targets and locations have all been sent to your tactical watches. Check them yourself. This operation is codenamed Night Owl. Let's set off in half an hour. This operation actually involves teams from other divisions. It seems that this operation is not simple. Wang Er touched his chin, thoughtfully. Shui Nian chuckled. With B-level petrochemical talent, he seemed not to feel the pressure at all. I'm afraid, we have 2 A-level captains and Ruya, and we have a group of fierce people. Isn't that going to be a massacre? Ren Jianming rolled his eyes and said teasingly, we are the ones killing indiscriminately, and you are responsible for the killing. Captain, I want to report that someone is showing off. Everyone was joking. Although Zhang Ruya had a cruel face, her personality was not fiery. On the contrary, he was still a little gentle. He looked at Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan. I will hug your thighs this time. Zhao Juxin also smiled and nodded. Haha, yes, Captain Su, we are a small team this time, and I will leave all the more than 100 kilograms to you. Su Xingyuan looked indifferent and coughed lightly, low-key, low-key. Chen Qi shook his head with a smile and turned to look at Li Ji, Zhang and others not far away. Li Ji's arm was cut off by himself, but he recovered in just over half a month. Recovery is extremely fast. This didn't surprise him. The treatment methods in the military are still very good. Such injuries are not fatal. In addition, he was in the military when he was injured, so the treatment was very timely. Several combat vehicles drove towards Lingu County. At this moment, in Lingu County, there are not many troops stationed here, only 1,000 people. The strongest one is Gao Ming, a powerful general in the 8th level. In the office, Gao Ming also received the notification of Operation Night Owl. Recruit training. I hope you don't wet your pants in fear. Gao Ming smiled playfully. The small beast tide in Lingu County is not too strong. It is expected that the strongest among the alien beasts is the martial arts realm. This kind of beast tide basically comes every 3 months in Lingu County. The strange beast seems to know no fear. He has been stationed here for 4 years. In 4 years, he saw too many beasts. Already used to it. He has also heard about the talent plan, but he doesn't know what it does specifically. This is confidential. We'll have some fun this time. Gao Ming stretched himself and began to wait for the arrival of the new recruits participating in Operation Night Owl. This battle is a bit big. In the car, Shui Nian licked his lips, his eyes shining. So does the rest of the people. Having had their first actual battle, everyone has become accustomed to facing strange beasts. In the second actual battle, everyone no longer felt nervous, but instead were filled with excitement and excitement. The Beast Suppression Army has more than 100 teams and more than 5,000 people. It's a bit of fun this time. Wang Er opened his mouth and said with a smile. When everyone in the car heard this, they all looked at each other, with a hint of fighting spirit permeating them. Zhao Juxin remained silent. In the first month of the recruit competition assessment, he already had a clear understanding of the strength of Su Xingyuan and Chen Qi's team. In the car, there were new members who joined the team, as well as members of the Wolong team like Wang Er. Speaking naturally becomes more natural. The others listened quietly to everyone's chatting, chiming in from time to time. Chen Qi said nothing, holding a black alloy longbow in his hand. Old Zhang, this time you are responsible for following me, and we will kill each other. Su Xingyuan said to Zhang Ruya with a smile, and glanced at Chen Qi. As for Chen Qi, he only needs to stay aside to rob the formation. After the words fell, Many people in the carriage laughed. Zhang Ruya smiled and replied, "Thank you to me, Brother Xingyuan. Brother Xingyuan is invincible and unbeatable." Chen Qi smiled and nodded. Shui Nian laughed out loud. "Captain, can I report it?" "Report for what?" Su Xingyuan looked sideways and asked lightly. The captain was very impressive. Shui Nian, Wang Er, Chen Qi, Zhang Ruya and others looked at each other and all said, "Report someone who is showing off." Su Xingyuan, "Get off." The doors of several combat vehicles opened, and all 32 teams got out of the vehicle to assemble. Didi, everyone's combat watch received the action target at the same time. Set up a line of defense and successfully resist the tide of small beasts. The team's points will be determined by the number of beasts killed. Coordinates 317.223.217. The put-away spear changed instantly in Su Xingyuan's hand, and an alloy spear was held in the palm of his hand. He raised his eyes and glanced at the people in front of him. Gather towards the target first. Chen Qi will be the scout, and the rest will form their own teams and configure them according to the team configuration. Do you understand? This time, Su Xingyuan is still the captain of the reorganized team. Originally, he wanted Chen Qi to take over, but Chen Qi waved his hand and refused. His archer talent is not suitable for being a captain. Being independent from the battlefield and controlling the entire battlefield is Chen Qi's position. Not the captain, but a more important role than the captain. Clear, set off. After the words fell, a group of team members headed towards the position marked on the tactical watch. Chen Qi held a black alloy longbow in his hand. As he moved, his military uniform had quietly turned into a black armor. The battle armor can be transformed into regular clothes or into a black battle armor. At this moment, Chen Qi, who was dressed in black armor, held a black alloy longbow in his hand. On his head, the armor automatically transformed into a hood, covering his face, making him look even more mysterious. Looking up, he was wearing a black armor, with a black hood on his head and the black armor integrated into one body, emitting a faint cold light. Mysterious and with a hint of murderous intent. Everyone in the team quietly looked back at Chen Qi, who was following the team at the end, their eyes full of envy. In the entire recruit company, Chen Qi was the first and only one to obtain the battle armor. The battle armor can provide it with powerful defense and can withstand the full blow of the 9th level warrior. No one would envy this kind of defense. After a while, everyone has arrived at a specific location. There are already veterans waiting here. Seeing Su Xingyuan and others appear, the veteran waiting here walked over quickly, exuding a faint evil aura. This is a unique aura formed after experiencing life and death over many years. The veteran's eyes flickered, and when he saw Chen Qi in the team wearing combat armor, his pupils shrank sharply. Battle armor. How could a new recruit have combat armor? Doubts flashed through my mind, and then I asked in a deep voice, "Who is the captain?" Su Xingyuan stepped out and came to the veteran. The two looked at each other and nodded slightly. This is the team's first goal. The veteran didn't waste any words and handed the battle plan in his hand to Su Xingyuan. "We will also operate with you as members of your squad." After the 4 veterans finished speaking, they spontaneously entered the team. Su Xingyuan looked at a few people, then lowered his head to examine this action. To the northwest, there is a small group of alien beasts escaping. We are going to destroy them and investigate the whereabouts of the alien beast tide. A simple sentence explains this action clearly. Su Xingyuan looked at the 4 of them and frowned slightly, as if he wanted to say something. Zhang Ruya, who was in the team, glanced at the 4 veterans who joined in and then looked away. Before the operation, Shang Han had already said that veterans would participate in this operation. "Captain Su, don't worry. This time we are just acting with you as team members. We will not be involved in the specific operational command." When the 4 veterans saw Su Xingyuan's expression, they already guessed his inner thoughts, so they opened their mouths to explain. As soon as the words fell, Su Xingyuan breathed a sigh of relief. At that moment, he no longer hesitated and ordered to head northwest. At the Lingu County garrison point, Shang Han and a group of recruit company commanders from other companies all appeared here. In front of him, more than 100 screens displayed the location and situation of each team. "Shang Han, have you discovered any good ideas now?" A young man in military uniform sat next to Shang Han and asked with a smile. What are you doing? Do you want to find out the news? Shang Han looked sideways, with a smile on his face. Haha, this is not just idle time, but also idle time. Let's chat. The young man laughed, and then said, I have a few good seedlings under my hands. How about 2S level combat talents? Shang Han glanced at him and said calmly, it's not bad. What? Do you have such a seedling under your hands? The young man was stunned for a moment. Shang Han's reaction was somewhat beyond his expectation. The two are both in the Wuzong realm and have known each other for a long time. It can be said that they are very familiar with each other. Yes, Shang Han nodded and admitted. Holy shit, do you really have one? The young man was stunned and asked in surprise. Without waiting for Shang Han to speak, he said to himself, no, I've heard that the best seedling you have is only an A-level thunder talent. When did S-level talents become available? Shang Han didn't hide it either and revealed the news about Li Ji, an S-level wind elemental. Tisk, what kind of person do I think I am if I am a well-connected person? The young man sneered, and then said, the A-level thunderbolt under your command is very good. That person should also be the most powerful recruit among your group of soldiers, right? Shang Han's lips raised slightly. Yes. I found nothing. Zhang Ruya looked around and shook her head. The team of 50 people has now been divided into 5 teams. Spread out and look for traces of the escaping beasts. Not found. Not found. Not found. News came from other teams one after another. Su Xingyuan frowned, raised his head and glanced around. At this moment, they are in the northwest of Linggu County, which used to be an old city with mostly low-rise buildings. 100 years have passed, and the once prosperous county has long been reduced to ruins, with reinforced concrete buildings covered by vegetation. The abandoned cars on the roadside have become rusty and will break when touched. Chen Qi was in the team. He looked up and saw ruins. He frowned slightly. I'll go take a look. His eyes fell on a building in the distance, and after saying that, he was about to leave. Seeing this, Zhang Ruya said loudly, I'm with you. Good. The two disappeared on the spot and headed straight for the building in the distance. 2 figures, like apes, appeared on the roof of the building in just a few seconds. Chen Qi, have you noticed anything? Zhang Ruya stuck her head out and looked at the surrounding environment. Being at a high place, the two people's field of vision has become very large. He looked around for a long time but found no trace of the strange beast. A pair of amber eyes exuded a cold gaze. With the blessing of Eagle Eye's insight, Chen Qi's vision became farther and sharper. His sharp eyes were constantly scanning the surroundings. With his innate skills, even the smallest movement could not escape his eyes. Seeing Chen Qi's serious expression, Zhang Ruya stopped talking and looked around cautiously, holding the alloy hammer tightly in her hand to prevent any strange beasts from appearing. Found it. Chen Qi suddenly spoke, his eyes fixed on a place in the distance. Found it. Zhang Ruya's eyes lit up and she followed Chen Qi's gaze, but he found nothing. I didn't see anything. He looked at Chen Qi doubtfully. Without explaining, Chen Qi raised the corner of his mouth slightly, turned to Zhang Ruya and said, I'll go first, you inform them. After saying that, he suddenly jumped up from the top of the building, then landed on the top of another building, and quickly disappeared from Zhang Ruya's eyes. Seeing this, Zhang Ruya didn't dare to delay. This time was different from before. But anything with the word beast tied is definitely not that simple. Even a small beast tied. Without waiting for Su Xingyuan and the others, with Chen Qi's speed, he arrived at the location he had observed before in just a few seconds. There was no sign of the strange beast. Chen Qi reached out and picked up a bunch of silver-gray hair on the vegetation nearby, put it between his nose and sniffed it. The breath of alien beasts. Having had previous actual battles, he was very familiar with the scent of alien beasts, and he was immediately sure that it was the scent of alien beasts. He did not continue moving forward. He was not sure how many alien beasts there were. The intelligence said that a group of alien beasts were escaping. The number was not stated, nor was the strength. Attacking hastily is not the right choice. After a while, Su Xingyuan and others arrived. Chen Qi, found it. Su Xingyuan strode over, came to Chen Qi's side, and looked around. Where are the shadows of strange beasts? Zhang Ruya's eyes were full of confusion. Chen Qi said he found it. Don't look at me, I don't know. The 4 veterans in the team looked at each other, said nothing, and listened quietly to Chen Qi's words. Look here, a bunch of silver gray hair in the palm of his hand exuded a unique aura. This is Su Xingyuan. Zhang Ruya and others looked at the silver gray hair. After a moment, light flashed in their eyes, and they said in a deep voice, Shadow Fox. Yeah, Chen Qi nodded, then walked forward a certain distance and pointed to a secret place. There are messy footprints. A smile appeared on the lips of the 4 veterans in the team, and it disappeared in an instant. They looked at each other and exchanged a look. This group of new recruits is quite interesting. They can find traces of strange beasts so quickly. Well, it's indeed a bit interesting, especially the one wearing the battle armor. He has keen observation and his strength is not yet known to be very strong. The archer talent, being able to observe so carefully and keenly, is indeed a good prospect, but I don't know if they can handle that team of alien beasts. That team of alien beasts is not weak. Keep reading. Anyway, we are not involved in anything else. We just need to cooperate with their actions. Quote, at least more than 60 strange beasts, with footprints ranging from deep to shallow, not just the shadow fox. Everyone quickly came to a conclusion. More than 60 exotic beasts. This amount made everyone feel shocked. Can a team without training be able to eat these 60 beasts? The shadow fox is best at hiding. It's a bit tricky when paired with other strange beasts. Su Xingyuan frowned, hesitating about this action. Zhang Ruya nodded. 60 strange beasts, our team probably can't eat them. The rest of the people listened quietly without speaking. Even Zhao Juxin didn't speak. It seemed that the previous lessons were still fresh in his mind. The 4 veterans were observing everyone's expressions and said nothing. They also wanted to see what decision Su Xingyuan would make as the captain. A-level thunder talent is not weak anymore. What surprised them was that Su Xingyuan did not make a decision directly, nor did he ask the opinions of other A-level talents in the team. Instead, he turned his attention to Chen Qi, who was wearing combat armor and holding a black alloy longbow. Chen Qi, do you think we can do it? Hearing this, the 4 veterans looked at each other again, their eyes full of confusion. What's going on? Su Xingyuan, an A-level thunder talent, didn't ask other people's opinions, but asked a member of the E-level archer. This group of veterans had never had the opportunity to understand the situation during the recruit competition assessment before. The first time they acted with Su Xingyuan and the others, they couldn't tell who was the captain for a while. Chen Qi pondered for a moment. You can try it. Since it is an escaped beast, there will definitely be injuries. Our team is not weak, so we should treat it as a test. After speaking, he looked at the 4 veterans in the team with a smile and said with a smile, anyway, our team aren't there still 4 powerful veterans? Veteran. After hearing Chen Qi's words, Su Xingyuan and Zhang Ruya looked at each other and relaxed slightly. Then chase. Su Xingyuan gave the order, then looked at Zhang Ruya and said, Old Zhang, follow Chen Qi and act with him. Zhang Ruya nodded. The team moved forward again. Chen Qi and Zhang Ruya did not choose to move forward with the team, but left the team. The 4 veterans who looked at this scene frowned, with disappointment flashing across their expressions. One person couldn't help but asked, Captain Su, are they not going to act with us? Su Xingyuan turned around, shook his head and replied, they don't need to act with us. As far as I know, Chen Qi only has an E-level archer talent, right? The combat support role does not move with the team. Captain Su, are you sure this is really okay? The man still felt that this was inappropriate. Zhao Juxin pursed his lips. Wang Xuanyan and others in the team looked at each other with smiles on their lips. No need, he will take action at the critical moment. Set off. For people who don't know Chen Qi, they must not understand it when they see him with only E-level talent leave the team and act alone. But as Su Xingyuan, Wang Zhao Juxin and others who have experienced Chen Qi's magical ability. But there was no objection to such a decision. The eyes of the 4 veterans flashed. I have already made an evaluation of Su Xingyuan's actions this time. It is a big taboo to not judge the situation accurately enough and let the team members leave the action on the battlefield. It seems like he's just a guy with only talent but no brains. Chen Qi, an E-class archer, is even more of an idiot. Several people shook their heads in unison, but in the end they did not refute Su Xingyuan's arrangement. Although they are veterans, in the final analysis they are just team members in this operation. They only need to act in accordance with the orders given by the captain. On the other side, Chen Qi and Zhang Ria, who were acting alone, continued to move northwest. Su Xingyuan and others will come later. On the road, Zhang Ria's strong figure was not slow. Now he has broken through to the 5th level of the warrior, and his speed is only slightly slower than Chen Qi. Cultivation is not just a matter of understanding, resources and hard work are both indispensable. Chen Qi didn't have many resources in his hands. The previous points were exchanged for resources, allowing him to successfully break through to the 6th level of the warrior. As strength increases, more resources will be required. Compared to him, Zhang Ria and others were already very fast. In the military, you not only rely on merit points to exchange for resources, but you can also use money to buy other people's merit points in exchange for resources. In this regard, Chen Qi's poor family suddenly became his weakness. The shadow fox is good at hiding, and its IQ is not low. It is a strange existence among low-level alien beasts. The two of them walked forward and talked. Listening to Zhang Ria's words, Chen Qi couldn't help but think of the information about Shadow Fox in his mind. He nodded and said, "This group of strange beasts should be here for reconnaissance purposes. We have never seen a small beast tied. It is definitely not just the Shadow Fox." Zhang Ria nodded, "Beast tied." This word was too far away from them before they joined the army, and they had never heard of it. Linggu County, continue walking northwest. There are no high-rise buildings here, only a series of low-rise houses remain. Stop. Chen Qi raised his hand to stop Zhang Ria. His eyes scanned the surroundings. What? Chen Qi's performance made Zhang Ria tense up, lowering her voice and asking quietly. Chen Qi did not speak, but pointed to a place not far away. There, the vegetation was messy and the footprints disappeared. Let's go. He felt a sense of uneasiness in his heart. Without explaining too much, he pulled Zhang Ria and hid in an abandoned house. The vegetation is messy and the footprints have disappeared. Alien beasts are most likely nearby. Chen Qi and Zhang Ria squatted beside the window of an abandoned house. He explained aloud. Zhang Ria's eyes narrowed, and she couldn't help but hold the alloy sledgehammer in her hand. What to do? Should we wait for Xingyuan and the others or retreat? Zhang Ria was a little nervous. There were only two of them. Once they were surrounded by strange beasts, they would be seriously injured even if they were not dead. Without answering, Chen Qi quietly glanced around, his amber eyes making him look a little strange. Can't leave. His pupils shrank slightly, and with the blessing of the innate skill Eagle Eye Insight, several figures were heading towards the location where the two of them had been. Among them, there was also a vague silver-gray figure flashing past. How far away are Xingyuan and the others? Looking at the arrow in his hand, Chen Qi kept scanning his surroundings. In a short period of time, several figures had flashed past and gradually surrounded their location. 10 kilometers. Zhang Ria answered immediately. As she spoke, a slight sound echoed in this quiet place. Stop talking, just act according to the situation. He gestured to Zhang Ria, and Chen Qi quietly disappeared. There was no time to call Chen Qi. Zhang Ria leaned against the window nervously, watching all directions and listening in all directions, always catching any changes. At the highest window of another private house, a pair of amber eyes took in the surrounding environment condescendingly. 4 5th-level warrior wind saber leopards, 1 warrior 5th-level stone-skinned rhinoceros, plus 2 warrior 6th-level ghost wolves, and 1 5th-level warrior shadow fox. His eyes glanced over, and all the movements of the 8 strange beasts were caught in his eyes. The shadow fox is good at stealth and cunning. In his eyes, the shadow fox was farthest away, hiding at the corner of a house. It was not surrounded by several other strange beasts. The shadow wolf stopped at the spot where Chen Qi and Zhang Ria had just stayed, and moved its nose. After sniffing, it turned back and made a low sound at the shadow fox. A pair of smart eyes of Juinghu glanced around and looked at the private house where Zhang Ria was. As a slightly sharp sound came out, the 7 strange beasts all looked at the house where Zhang Ria was. Then he quickly rushed towards his location. Zhang Ria held the alloy sledgehammer tightly and thought to herself, I only have 2 people. All the strange beasts in front of me are at the 5th level of warriors, and there are even 2 ghost wolves at the 6th level of warriors. The enemy is outnumbered and we are outnumbered. It is unrealistic for the 2 of us to break through the siege of the alien beasts. Quote. Right now, the only thing I hope for is that Su Xingyuan and the others can move faster. In another private house, a silver arrow was quietly placed on the bowstring of the alloy longbow. So what about 2 people? He still dared to draw an arrow. The string of the bow is like the full moon. Several strange beasts were very fast, and without any hidden moves at this time, they just rushed towards the house where Zhang Ruya was. What should I do? Chen Qi, do you want to do it? Looking at the alien beast rushing towards her position, Zhang Ruya narrowed her eyes and held the alloy sledgehammer tightly, as if it was about to explode in the next second. Chen Qi didn't speak. His calm eyes glanced at the strange beast in front of him. The arrow was ready to go. The next second, his fingers released, and a sharp sound of breaking through the air suddenly sounded. Whoosh! The arrows were like silver light, flying out from the string of the black alloy longbow and breaking the air. The arrow rotates rapidly, and its target is the wind saber leopard at the front of the 7 strange beasts. The 5th level of warrior realm. The main characteristic of the wind saber is speed, and it can launch sharp wind blades to attack. His hair was as sharp as a knife, and his eyes were shining with a cold light. The silver light flashed away, and the wind saber was covered in fur. Before it even had time to scream, a flash of silver light penetrated its neck. The powerful force on the arrow carried the wind saber's body flying several meters away. Old Zhang! Chen Qi shouted loudly and disappeared from the spot. The second before he disappeared, the silver arrow flew out again, heading straight for another wind saber. Chen Qi, seeing the wind saber lying down no more than 10 meters away from her, Zhang Ri looked in shock at the direction where the arrow flew. He thought Chen Qi was planning a retreat route, but who would have thought that he would suddenly take action? This was the first time he saw Chen Qi take action with his own eyes. Clean and neat, no sloppiness. With one arrow flying out, a wind saber leopard at the 5th level of warrior was killed. Following Chen Qi's loud shout, Zhang Ria's eyes suddenly lit up, and she held the alloy sledgehammer tightly in her hand. Anger dropped from his dantian, and he shouted, "You!" When Chen Qi and Zhang Ria took action, Su Xingyuan and others were also speeding towards their location. Captain, Chen Qi and the others should be fine. Wang Shui Nian, Zhao Juxin and others hurried on. The body is like electricity. Su Xingyuan looked serious, and the smile in his eyes was gone. It should be fine. When Zhang Ria sent me the message, they had just tracked the traces of the strange beast. I've told them not to act yet. Hurry up. Everyone stopped talking, and a team of dozens of people galloped towards where Chen Qi and Zhang Ria were. In the team, 4 veterans were talking in low voices as they hurried on. An E-level archer's strength cannot exceed the 3rd level of a warrior at most, plus an A-level strength enhancement, and his strength can reach the 5th level of a warrior. 2 people dare to leave the team to track a group of strange beasts. It is really fearless for those who don't know. Quote, 10 kilometers, 2 new recruits faced this kind of situation. It's a miracle that they survived. Well, the recruits who go to the battlefield for the first time always feel that they are the ones who save the world. Only when they lose their lives can they teach these people a lesson. Let's go on our way. I hope those 2 new recruits won't act rashly. Listening to the discussions from the 4 veterans, everyone in the team couldn't help but feel their hearts sink. The first recruit competition assessment was conducted under safety conditions. But this time, it was a real battlefield, and no one was protecting them anymore. Facing alien beasts, there is only one outcome: either you die or I die. I'll beat you to death. With the enhanced A-level strength, Zhang Ria's already tall figure became stronger and stronger. The bulging muscles are like a horned dragon. The whole person exudes an extremely sturdy aura. At this moment, Zhang Ria's chest was covered in blood, and the alloy sledgehammer was in front of her. Ding ding, sparks flying. The invisible wind blade hit the alloy sledgehammer, leaving white marks. A stone-skin rhinoceros, 2 ghost wolves and the remaining wind saber were constantly besieging him. Block the attack from the wind saber. Zhang Ria's eyes flashed with cold light. She took a step forward at an extremely fast speed, and slammed the alloy sledgehammer in her hand towards the wind saber in front of her. Bang! With the gift of strength enhancement, the original strength of 3,3500 kilograms was instantly increased to 13,000. The alloy sledgehammer made a whining sound and hit the wind saber. The violent power poured into the wind saber through the alloy sledgehammer. With a bang, the 1-ton wind saber flew more than 30 meters in an instant under the hammer. It hit a private house hard, causing the wall to collapse and dust to fly everywhere. Zhang Ruya grinned, her smile cold. Whoosh! On the string of the black alloy longbow, a silver arrow suddenly left the string. Under the black hood, the amber eyes looked extremely cold, like a high-level predator. And the arrow that flew out was the fang in his mouth. Once targeted, death will follow. 3 wind sabers have been killed. But this time, his target was the wind saber that was thrown away by Zhang Ruya. The moment the wind saber was thrown away, Chen Qi's arrow had already left its bow. The arrows that flew out were spinning and flying with great power. The power of up to 3,500, 4,000 kilograms, with the blessing of the bowstring, the power is amplified. Although it is not as powerful as Zhang Ruya's strength enhancement talent, it still reaches 8,000 kilograms. Bang! The moment the wind saber's body hit the house, silver arrows flew towards it. Under the dual blessing of powerful strength and terrifying speed, the wind saber's body is as fragile as paper. The silver light was like a cannonball, instantly piercing through the wind saber's body, blowing the houses behind it into pieces with its body. It continuously passed through 4 walls and directly penetrated the entire house, leaving a big hole. The terrifying power on the arrow exploded. With a bang, the wind saber's body turned into minced meat and exploded. The silver arrow was nailed to the wall, and the tail of the arrow shook. Is the archer so awesome? The result of an arrow made Zhang Ruya stunned. After letting out a sigh, he held an alloy sledgehammer to resist the attacks of the 3 strange beasts in front of him. Chen Qi's eyes narrowed slightly as he killed the wind saber with 1 arrow. Sweep around. Where's the shadow fox? The silver-gray figure quietly disappeared, leaving only 3 strange beasts. I'll be looking for you later. He stopped looking for traces of the shadow fox and focused on the 3 strange beasts in front of him. The strength of the 2 netherworld wolves has reached the 6th level of warrior. If it weren't for Chen Qi's frequent attacks, Zhang Ruya, a 5th-level warrior, would have been unable to stop the attacks of the 3 alien beasts. At this time, Chen Qi's eyes fell on the 2 netherworld wolves. The stone-skinned rhinoceros has amazing defensive power, but it is not good at attacking. The main function of the stone-skinned rhinoceros in front of him is to contain Zhang Ruya's attacks, acting as a human shield. Kill you first. This time, 3 arrows were placed on the bowstring. 3-ringed moon arrow. This is the archery technique recorded in a martial arts book he found in the logistics department. Although the nether wolf does not have the defensive power of the stone-skinned rhinoceros, it is not that easy to break through. Its only weakness is the white hair under its neck. The location is very small, and the nether wolf will also deliberately protect its weak points when attacking. Bang! The horn on Shapixi's head hit the alloy sledgehammer hard. The huge force shook Zhang Ruya's figure. She couldn't help but take a few steps back and stamped her foot on the ground, leaving a deep mark. Zhang Ruya couldn't help but complain. The continuous attacks had already gradually weakened his strength. The temples are beating wildly. This is the result of using too many innate skills and consuming mental energy. Beat you beast. He gritted his teeth and blocked the horn. The stone-skinned rhinoceros took a few steps back and was about to hit him again. 2 ghost wolves are also waiting for the opportunity. Whoosh! 3 streams of silver light emerged from the bowstring. 3 silver arrows fly in the air, swinging like a dragon, making it unpredictable. The stone-skinned rhinoceros and the 2 netherworld wolves suddenly raised their heads and looked at the 3 silver streams of light. The 3-ring moon arrow shoots 3 arrows at the same time, flying in different directions, which is unpredictable, and then converges at one point, shaped like a 3-ring moon arrow, so it is called the 3-ring moon arrow. The arrows swinging like a wandering dragon put the 3 strange beasts on guard. Naturally, Zhang Ruya would not let go of such a good opportunity. The alloy sledgehammer in his hand went straight towards the stone-skinned rhinoceros with a whistling sound. He wanted to prevent the stone-skinned rhinoceros from blocking the arrows of the 2 ghost wolves. A hammer blasted out, and a dull sound sounded. The 4-ton stone-skinned rhinoceros was also beaten backwards under this hammer. At this time, the 3 silver streams of light in the sky that looked like swimming dragons suddenly changed their trajectories. It was as if there was an invisible big hand moving the lines in his hand. They all came towards a netherworld wolf. Its target is the white spot on the netherworld wolf's neck. In the military camp guarding Linggu County, Gao Ming, who is in charge of garrisoning here, as well as Shang Han and other recruit company commanders of the Third Army are all here. Hundreds of screens are showing the status of each team. Compared with other people present, the strength of the 7th level military commander is no longer weak. Shang Han was an anomaly in the Wuzong realm. He was not originally the company commander, but the commander of the 5th Regiment of the Beast-Suppressing Army. He doesn't need to worry about the affairs of the recruit company at all, let alone the position of commander of the recruit company. Gao Ming glanced at the hundreds of pictures in front of him with calm eyes. Gao Ming turned to look at Shang Han and asked with a smile, "Captain Shang, the people under your command are very talented." As he said that, he looked at one of the screens, which was playing the situation of Li Ji and his team. An S-level wind element talent, this should be the best talent among your recruits this time. The commanders of the surrounding recruit companies smiled and looked at Shang Han with envy in their eyes. There are not many talented recruits in the army, and A-level talents are enough to attract the attention of the company commander of this group of recruits. Not to mention an S-level talent. Shang Han's eyes paused on the picture of Li Ji and the others for a moment, and then turned to the picture in the upper left corner. There was Su Xingyuan and his team. He said calmly, "The level of talent does not determine a person's final achievement. I'm just an A-level talent." Wei Yun, who was sitting next to Shang Han, curled his lips and said, "When will you stop pretending?" As the leader of the 18th Regiment, his strength is also at the Wuzong level, so the conversation between the two of them is not as restrained as Gao Ming and the others. Withdrawing his gaze, Shang Han glanced sideways at Wei Yun and said in a calm voice, "Your S-level talent is now at the Wuzong realm unlike me." "What the hell?" Wei Yun's expression froze. Okay, you boy, just wait for me and see when I pass you. I had some insights a few days ago, and accidentally broke through to the 5th level of Wuzong." Shang Han. Wei Yun gritted his teeth and looked at him with resentment, his back molars were almost broken. It was almost done. Shang Han smiled at the corner of his lips and did not choose to provoke Wei Yun again. Instead, he turned his eyes to the scene in front of him again. Where did that boy Chen Qi go? Shang Han had doubts in his eyes. Wei Yun followed Shang Han's gaze and landed on the screen. The next second he said, "The overall strength of this team is weak. Although the A-level Thunder has good talent, as a captain, he is very incompetent." Shang Han turned to look at Wei Yun. "You still don't know." After Wei Yun finished speaking, he remembered it the next second and said, "You were away for a while, so I don't know." Su Xingyuan actually allowed the archer and another strengthened team member in the team to leave and act alone. Stupid decision. After listening to Wei Yun's words, Shang Han finally understood what had just happened. Before, he went out to receive a communication from Zhang Zesheng. It was during this period that Chen Qi and Zhang Ria left the team and acted alone. He frowned, looked at Gao Ming, and said in a deep voice, "Bring up the pictures of Chen Qi and Zhang Ria." Gao Ming nodded and called out the location and situation of the two of them. At the first glance, everyone present was stunned. In the picture, Zhang Ria holds an alloy sledgehammer and attacks the stone-skinned rhinoceros in front of her without retreating. Around it, 6 corpses of strange beasts were scattered. Look at Chen Qi's situation. In the picture, Chen Qizheng is standing on the roof of the building, with the black alloy longbow in his hand as full as the moon. 3 silver arrows were ready to go. The next second, a sharp sound broke through the air. The 3 arrows swayed like a dragon and shot in 3 different directions. This is... Gao Ming froze on the spot, staring blankly at the 3 silver arrows shooting in different directions in the picture in front of him. Wei Yun stared closely at the arrows flying out of the screen. Doubt flashed in his eyes. What is this going to do? There are no strange beasts there. Unlike Gao Ming and Wei Yun, Shang Han's eyes changed instantly when he saw Chen Qi shoot 3 arrows with one bow. 3-ringed moon arrow. What? Wei Yun is not an archer, and he doesn't know much about archers. Shang Han did not answer, but stared at the 3 arrows in the picture. The silver light is like electricity, and the arrows are like dragons. The 3 rays of silver light flew at extremely fast speeds in the air, making people unpredictable. Just when everyone was wondering who the target of these 3 arrows was, the trajectories of the 3 arrows that were originally shooting in different directions suddenly changed. As if controlled by an invisible big hand, the 3 arrows were only a few meters away from the stone-skinned rhinoceros. The trajectories suddenly changed and their trajectories converged at one place. The 3 arrows gathered together to form a posture like stars over the moon. The arrows from the left and right arrows hit the arrow in the middle. The powerful force hit the arrow, causing its flight speed to suddenly increase. It's just a few meters away and you're there in an instant. And its target is Shapixi's eyes. Extremely fast. The stone-skin rhinoceros, who has reached the 5th level of warrior realm, is far from the strength he encountered in the first actual battle. The eyelids covered with gray skin closed instantly. Clang! The arrow hit Shapixi's eyelid hard, leaving a small wound. Roar! Blocking the arrow, Shapixi roared angrily and opened his eyelids again. There was a trace of human sarcasm in the huge eyes. But is it that simple to set up a moon arrow with 3 rings? The 2 arrows pushed the first arrow and hit Shapixi's eyelid, leaving a small wound. The other 2 arrows did not stop there. If you observe carefully enough, you can find that the 3 arrows actually fly out in sequence. The head of the 3rd arrow flashed with a cold light. Just like before, it hit the head of the 2nd arrow. Under the collision, the power carried by the arrow was transferred to the arrow in front. The next moment, the speed of the 2nd arrow suddenly increased. Before the stone-skinned rhinoceros could react, it penetrated its eyes instantly. Roar! His eyes were shot through by alloy arrows, and Shapixi screamed in agony. And at this moment, the 3rd arrow struck. Once again, it shot into Shapixi's big eyes. Passed through the back of the head. The screams stopped abruptly. The stone-skinned rhino's huge body collapsed to the ground. Silence. Deathly silence. The scene of the 3 silver streams of light shooting the stone-skinned rhinoceros kept reappearing in Gao Ming's mind. This. Someone came back to his senses and looked at Chen Qi, who had calm eyes in the picture, and his whole body felt bad. Gao Ming was stunned for a moment, looked at the company commander of a new recruit next to him, and asked in surprise, "Are archers so strong?" The man still had a look of disbelief in his eyes and answered blankly, "I don't know." Wei Yun was surprised. As a martial artist, he had never seen such a strong archer. E-level talent. Shang Han nodded, his eyes flashing with light. "Shang Han, are you kidding me?" Wei Yun looked excited, pointed at Chen Qi in the screen, and said excitedly, "Did you tell him he was an E-level archer? Have you ever seen any E-level archer with such a strong talent? The power he exploded just now was at least 9,000. How can an E-level talent cultivate at such a fast speed? Besides, you just saw it, shooting 3 arrows with 1 bow. You told him he was an E-level talent." Wei Yun looked very excited and kept spitting out a barrage of words. "Shang Han, I really want to know too. I am Sao. What the data says is the E-level archer talent. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."